Chapter 1480. That's for sure. The few of them laughed heartily and made up their minds. This must be junior sister Shangguan. Seeing her in person is better than hearing about her. An alchemist looked at Shangguan Wanrong, who was dressed in white and had a beautiful appearance and gentle temperament. When he stared at her, his eyes couldn't help but light up. For anyone, seeing beautiful things would make their eyes light up, let alone people. Shangguan Wanrong's appearance was outstanding not only in Three Yang Peak, but also in Danyang sect. Otherwise, Three Yang Zi's disciples wouldn't be so interested in her. Wanrong greets senior brothers. She smiled faintly and bowed slightly. There's no need to be so courteous. We're here on Master's orders to give junior sister Shangguan a congratulatory gift. Thinking that junior sister Shangguan should be coming out soon, we waited here for a while to see her. The alchemist said with a smile, junior sister Shangguan certainly didn't disappoint us. Not only is her appearance and temperament outstanding, but her talent is also excellent. Martial uncle Three Yang really took in a good disciple. Senior brother is too kind. She lowered her head slightly and smiled, then looked at Three Yang Zi. Master, I heard senior brother say that Master has something to tell us. What is it? Oh. Since martial uncle Three Yang has something to tell us, we'll take our leave first. The alchemist surnamed Li cupped his hands at Three Yang Zi, then nodded at Duan Mu Bai and Shangguan Wanrong. When he was about to leave, he heard Three Yang Zi's laughing voice. It's actually nothing. You don't have to leave. Three Yang Zi smiled and looked at Shangguan Wanrong. It's like this, Wanrong. Now that you've entered the nascent soul stage and become a nascent soul cultivator, your alchemy skills are also not bad. Therefore, Master intends to let you go out to gain experience and broaden your horizons. While you're at it, help Master look for the 5-colored golden lotus. Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong was slightly startled. In an instant, deep thoughts and doubts flashed through her mind, but she didn't show it on her face. She asked, Master wants to let disciple go out and gain experience. And look for the 5-colored golden-rimmed lotus at the same time. Ever since he brought her back, he refused to let her leave the sect. Now, why would he want her to go out and search for that 5-colored golden-edged lotus? What was he planning? Even Duan Mu Bai who stood at the side was stunned, and he seemed to have not expected that she had called them over for this matter. Thus, after Duan Mu Bai pondered deeply for a moment, he said, Master, if you allow little junior sister to go out and gain experience, disciple is willing to accompany her. After all, little junior sister is still inexperienced, and disciple can take care of her by her side. When the disciples at the side heard this, they looked at the two of them with strange expressions, but did not say anything. When the disciples from the other peaks saw this, they laughed. So it's about this. Martial uncle Three Yang just told us that he wants to let junior sister Shangguan go out of the sect to gain experience and broaden her horizons. We all think that this is a good idea. The Peak Lord is so nice to his disciples. He really has your backs. Another alchemist said enviously. Their master would not make such arrangements for them. If they wanted to go out of the sect, they had to apply for it themselves. Whatever they wanted to do, they had to arrange it themselves. At this moment, Three Yang Zi coughed lightly and glanced at Duan Mu Bai. Master has other arrangements for you guys. When your junior sister goes out to gain experience, you guys can't stay idle. Chapter 1481. Shangguan Wanrong looked at him and pondered for a while before replying softly, I'll listen to Master's arrangements. Hearing that, Three Yang Zi nodded in satisfaction. All right then. Go back and pack up. We'll set off tomorrow. Hearing that they would set off tomorrow, Duan Mubai's eyes narrowed. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but Shangguan Wanrong had already acknowledged him and left after bowing. Then we'll take our leave too. We still have to report to our master. The disciples from the other peaks also cupped their fists and left one after another. In the end, only Duan Mubai and a few others were left. "Master, what do you need us to do?" Duan Mubai asked as his gaze fell on 3 Yangzi in front of him. At that moment, his heart sank slightly because he sensed that once his junior sister left, he was afraid that 3 Yangzi's gaze swept past them and landed on Duan Mubai. He instructed, "I'll be in seclusion to refine pills during this period of time. No one is allowed to enter the 9th peak. I'll leave the matters in 3 Yangzi peak to you guys. Don't let the disciples mess up the situation. Also, if there's anything important, let Mubai handle it. Remember, my pill refinement this time is extremely important. No matter what happens, you're not allowed to disturb me on the 9th peak." When they heard this, they couldn't help but look at each other. Then, they replied respectfully, "Yes, we'll follow Master's instructions." On the other side, Fengjiu was waiting at the 8th peak. When she saw her mother coming down from the 9th peak, she wanted to go up to her. However, when she saw that there were many disciples from the other peaks who were talking as they came down, she stopped in her tracks. After all, it would seem strange for a servant like her to go down. Hence, she didn't go near them. Instead, she cupped her fists and smiled at her mother. "Congratulations on entering the nascent soul stage, Uncle Master Shangguan." Shangguan Wanrong smiled when she heard that. "Yes." She walked past her and went to the cave abode first. Fengjiu stood aside and watched the disciples from the other peaks walk past her as they talked. Just as she was about to go to the cave abode, she saw Duan Mubai and a few others walking down from behind. "Why are you still here?" Duan Mubai stared at Fengjiu with a frown, looking displeased. Fengjiu blinked. "Martial Uncle Duan, I'm a servant. I always run up and down, so there's nothing strange about me being here, right?" Why did this Duan Mubai like to stare at her? She wasn't in his way. "Since you know that you're a handyman, hurry up and go down the mountain." He instructed in a deep voice, "The 8th summit didn't ask you to come, so don't walk around here often." Seeing this, Fengjiu could only reply, "Yes." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and walked down the mountain. As he walked down, he heard the disciples on the mountain talking about how 3 Yangzi had arranged for his mother to leave the sect to gain experience. Hearing this, she couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. Leaving the sect for training? This was strange. Wasn't she not allowed to leave the sect? He was willing to let her out now. Did this mean that he was looking for an opportunity to make a move? As she pondered, she wanted to go to the 8th summit to discuss with her mother. However, Duan Mubai was still staring at her from behind, so she could only walk down and look for another opportunity. Chapter 1482. Junior sister, Duan Mubai called out to Shangguan Wanrong's cave, "I have something to tell you." As soon as he finished speaking, the enchantment of the cave opened up. Seeing this, Duan Mubai walked in and saw the woman who was collecting the soft and delicate things. "Is there anything else, eldest senior brother?" Shangguan Wanrong stopped what she was doing and turned around to look at him. Duan Mubai hesitated for a moment, as if he was thinking about how to speak. After a long while, he said, "Junior sister, don't come back this time." Shangguan Wanrong gently revealed a smile. "Eldest senior brother, don't worry. I know what to do." Her voice paused. She looked at him and softly said, "I want to ask eldest senior brother for a favor." Duan Mubai was slightly surprised when he heard this. Because she'd never made any requests, so what exactly was it that could make her say this? "Tell me, as long as it's something I can do, I won't refuse." Shangguan Wanrong nodded. "I want to ask eldest senior brother to take care of Fengjiu. If eldest senior brother can't take care of her, then let her go home." The only thing she was worried about was her daughter. If anything were to happen to her daughter, she was afraid that she would act recklessly. San Yangzi was a fairy realm expert. No matter how strong she was, she would not be able to defeat San Yangzi. Hearing this, Duan Mubai was surprised and couldn't help but ask, "Junior sister, what's the relationship between you and Fengjiu? Ever since I came back from the mystery realm, I felt that you two seem to be a little." "Eldest senior brother, please don't ask about this. If there's a chance in the future, I'll tell you, but not now." Hearing this, Duan Mubai nodded. "I know, don't worry. I'll take good care of him. If he doesn't want to stay in the faction, I'll let him go home." "Thank you, eldest senior brother." She bowed and thanked him. Duan Mubai looked at her deeply, but didn't say anything. He only said, "Then I'll leave first. You must be careful on your way." "I will." She nodded and sent him out of the Immortal's cave. After watching him leave, she looked around and didn't see her daughter. Only then did she turn around and enter the Immortal's cave. Fengjiu hadn't had the time because Luoheng had pestered him. After she walked down the mountain, she was dragged to see Qingdao. It was only when the sky turned dark that she finally found some time to sneak into the 8th summit and go to her mother's cave abode. "Mother, I'm here." After entering the cave, she called out and saw her mother walking out from inside. "I've been waiting for you here for half a day. Why are you only here now?" As Shangguan Wanrong spoke, she pulled her mother's hand to the table and sat down. She said, Yangzi wants me to leave the sect tomorrow to gain experience. You listen to mother's words. After mother leaves, you also find a chance to leave and return home. Originally, she could have brought her along. However, she was worried that if she brought her along, she would implicate her daughter when she couldn't escape outside. Hence, she could only let her stay and find a chance to leave. "I've already asked eldest senior brother to take care of you. If you encounter any problems, you can look for him. He's still a capable person and will definitely help you," she instructed softly. Chapter 1483. No. Shangguan Wanrong shook her head. "He's a fairy realm expert. You're no match for him. Besides, even if you use medicine, it won't work. He's an alchemist, and he's far more familiar with medicine than you and me. Listen to me. After I leave, find time to leave this place. As long as I'm still alive, I'll definitely come back to find you." Fengjiu looked at her. She wanted to say something, but she thought that she would definitely stop her, so she didn't say anything more. She just smiled and said, "Okay, I know." Seeing her reply so quickly, Shangguan Wanrong knew that she didn't take her words to heart and didn't take her reminder seriously. Therefore, she patted her hand and said again, "You have to take mother's words to heart. You have to know that being careful is the parent of a ship that can last for 10,000 years. You can't be careless about anything." Yes, I know. I'll remember," she said with a smile. She talked with her for a while and told her some things. That night, the mother and daughter slept on the same bed as if they had endless things to talk about. Fengjiu didn't fall asleep until the sky gradually brightened. Early morning after tidying everything up, Shangguan Wanrong came to the bedside and sat down. Looking at her sleeping daughter, she couldn't help but reveal a gentle and loving smile. She reached out and stroked her face, saying softly, "You must remember what I said. Be good and go home." When Fengjiu opened her eyes and saw her, a lazy smile appeared on her face. "Mother, didn't you say last night that you'd leave at noon? Why did you get up so early?" As soon as she finished speaking, she saw her mother suddenly hit her acupoint, making her unable to move and lying on the bed. She opened her eyes slightly and looked at her mother in astonishment. "Mother, what are you doing? Quickly unseal my acupoint. Be good and sleep here. I'll leave first. Don't follow me. Otherwise, it'll be too dangerous." Shangguan Wanrong said softly and helped her pull the quilt up. When Fengjiu heard this, she hurriedly said, "Mother, unseal my acupoint. I promise I won't follow you. Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong couldn't help but chuckle. She reached out and pinched Fengjiu's nose. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. I don't believe your promise. Be good, be good. As she spoke, her expression became serious. Compared to my safety, I'm more concerned about your safety. Only when you're safe can I be at ease. She knew, Fengjiu, but this time, she couldn't take her with her. If she left first. Fengjiu. Mother, father is still waiting for you to return. And Fengjiu, you, at least, if I'll, for sure. You are. You. Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong chuckled. What can a child like you do? It's fine as long as you don't cause any trouble. Alright, I won't talk to you anymore. Here are the things I left for you. You take good care of them. If something happens to me, then let your father marry another woman. Don't be so stubborn. Also, you must take good care of yourself. Chapter 1484. Mother is leaving. You have to take good care of yourself. Nothing is more important than being alive. Shangguan Wanrong let go of her hand and looked at her deeply. At this moment, the voices of Duan Mubai and the others came from outside. Junior sister. She turned around and walked out. She closed the barrier and came to the people outside. Greetings, senior brothers. Little junior sister, we knew you were leaving today, so we came to see you off. The third-ranked alchemist smiled and asked, Are you ready? Yes, I'm about to leave. She nodded. Let's see you out of the sect. Duan Mubai said and gestured for her to leave. Shangguan Wanrong smiled and walked to the sect gate with them. On the way, they chatted from time to time. When she learned from them that 3 Yangzi was in seclusion to refine pills, she just smiled. The few of them sent her out of the sect before stopping in their tracks. Little junior sister, you're alone outside. You have to be careful in everything. I know. Shangguan Wanrong said and bowed to them. Thank you for seeing me off. It's getting late, so I'll leave first. Be careful on the road. Be careful, junior sister. Take care. As they spoke, they watched her leave. It wasn't until the door closed again that they exchanged glances with each other and left one after another. Duan Mubai didn't return to the 8th peak directly. Instead, he went to the servant disciple. He thought of Shangguan Wanrong's instructions and transferred the servant disciple to his side. This way, it would be easier to take care of him. At the same time, in Shangguan Wanrong's cave, Fengjiu was lying on the bed and couldn't move. However, she secretly urged the spiritual power in her body to open the acupuncture point. It was too dangerous to let her mother go alone. That 3 Yangzi would definitely not miss such an opportunity. She was even sure that he must be waiting for her mother outside the sect gate. The spiritual power in her body started to circulate. Because of her mother's departure, she felt a little uneasy. She didn't know what would happen. But fortunately, she had already made arrangements. Thinking of this, her anxious heart relaxed slightly and she focused on opening the acupuncture point. At the same time, outside the sect, Shangguan Wanrong slowly walked down the mountain. There was no one behind her, but she felt as if there was a pair of eyes staring at her, as if they were ready to attack at any time. This feeling made her body stiffen and her hair stand on end. Walking down the mountain path, the rustling sound in the forest sounded like the wind blowing, but also like the sound of someone stepping on the leaves. She braced herself and kept her guard up, but as she walked down, nothing happened along the way. Was it just her imagination? Was she being paranoid? She thought to herself, as long as I leave this place, I'll be able to get out of this place where flying is prohibited. Then, I'll fly on my sword and leave this place quickly. As long as I leave this place, it won't be so easy for 3 Yangzi to find me. As he thought about it, he quickened his pace and walked down. His pace became faster and faster. In the end, he was practically running. However, just as she was about to leave this no-fly zone, an incomparably familiar voice suddenly came from behind her. Wanrong. She stiffened and jumped in fright. She quickly turned around and saw 3 Yangzi in a gray robe standing not far away and looking at her. Seeing this, she forced herself to calm down and steady her fluctuating emotions. She slowly asked, "Master. Why are you here?" Chapter 1485. Seeing her step back, 3 Yangzi stroked his beard and laughed. "Wanrong, what are you doing? Are you trembling? Are you afraid of your master? Why are you afraid of your master?" He slowly walked down from above. It looked like he was stepping on the ground, but in reality, it was as if he was stepping on air. His soles were not stained with mud. That pair of sharp and deep eyes stared closely at Shangguan Wanrong. He smiled and said, "Looking at you, you obviously guessed that your master would come." "I knew it. You're smarter than your senior brothers. Actually, I quite like you. I really like such a smart disciple like you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken you as my last disciple." Shangguan Wanrong watched as he spoke and walked closer. She couldn't help but step back and ask, "What do you want?" "You don't have to be afraid. I just want to ask you for a favor. I just want to borrow you to help me." He stared at her and said, "You're my last disciple. If I ask you for a favor, you won't refuse, right?" Seeing this, she said coldly, "Master, did you forget that today is the day I left the sect to gain experience? This is something that you arranged. Could it be that you want me to return to the sect now?" "Ha, Wanrong, you know what I mean. Otherwise, why would you agree to come out? Actually, only you can come out. This way, even if you disappear, and don't return to the sect, no one will say anything." As he spoke, he stroked his beard with a face full of righteousness. "I'm a famous alchemist in the Danyang sect. I'm also the peak master of 3 Yangzi Peak. My identity and status are so extraordinary that no matter where I go, I'll be admired by everyone. Therefore, I can't let the scandal of killing my disciple spread. So, I thought of a good idea. As long as you leave the sect, then everything will have nothing to do with you. Here, no one will know who took you away. No one will know where to go to save you. No one will know whether you're dead or alive. This is what I want." Ha ha ha. He raised his head and laughed loudly. That laughter echoed in the forest and spread through Shangguan Wanrong's heart. It was like ice that pierced her bones and penetrated her heart. She suppressed the fear in her heart and asked, "Why me? Out of so many people, why me? Just because I have a spirit-gathering physique? You want to use my nascent soul to refine pills, right? Is it to prepare you for your impending lifespan? You know." 3 Yangzi was astonished, as if he was very surprised that she actually knew. Therefore, he smiled and nodded, "That's right. You're my last disciple, so you should know that I was seriously injured in my early years. Now that this injury has flared up, it's affecting my body and shortening my lifespan. There's no other way, because I don't want to die. I'm not willing to give up everything that I've obtained with great difficulty. Don't worry, as long as I succeed, I won't treat your family unfairly." As he spoke, his figure flashed and instantly swept towards Shangguan Wanrong. Seeing this, Shangguan Wanrong quickly turned around and rushed forward. She couldn't be captured, and even more so, couldn't be killed. Otherwise, she didn't dare to imagine whether her daughter would fight 3 Yangzi to the death if she knew about this. Chapter 1486. As soon as 3 Yangzi spoke, his figure flashed and grabbed Shangguan Wanrong's shoulder just as she was about to escape. He was so fast that a nascent soul cultivator could not compare to him at all. Ah! The pain from her shoulder made her cry out in pain. Half of her body immediately fell down. She could only feel his hand tightly gripping her shoulder, as if he was going to crush her bones. It was so painful that she could not exert any strength. Wanrong, I've said that you can't escape. Come back with me obediently. His voice was deep as he dragged her away forcefully to the other side. Let go of me. Let go of me. Shangguan Wanrong struggled and wanted to fight back. However, as she had just entered the nascent soul stage, her aura was still unstable. Furthermore, her shoulder was being held and she was being forcefully suppressed by the pressure of a fairy. Based on her strength, she could not fight back and could only allow herself to be dragged away forcefully. Shut up. Be quiet. When 3 Yangzi saw that she was screaming and struggling, he raised his hand to knock her unconscious. However, at that moment, he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. His hand, which was about to strike Shangguan Wanrong's neck, turned around and struck behind him. Bang! The airflow from the palm strike landed on the ground with a bang, causing a loud bang and sending sand and dirt flying everywhere. At the same time, a ferocious beast's roar was heard. It was deafening and echoed throughout the forest. Roar! Tun Yun, who had transformed into his true form, bared his teeth and roared. His bloodthirsty eyes stared fixedly at 3 Yangzi. His sharp claws flashed and his entire body surged with the powerful aura of a divine beast. A divine beast. When 3 Yangzi saw Tun Yun, he could not help but cry out in shock, how could there be a divine beast in this place? When he took a closer look, he realized that this divine beast had been contracted by someone. He calmed himself down and shouted in a deep voice, "Who's your master? What are you trying to do? Let her go. Otherwise, I'll tear you to pieces." Tun Yun said. His voice was filled with a bloodthirsty viciousness, causing people to shudder even though it was not cold. The divine beast's aura emanated from his body and enveloped the surroundings, forming a current of air. Shangguan Wanrong was originally shocked by the sudden appearance of this mythological beast. She didn't expect to hear this. She was puzzled in her heart. Could this be her daughter's mythological beast? She even arranged for a mythological beast to guard outside. Thinking of this, Mo Tianga's heart skipped a beat. She wouldn't chase after her after breaking through her acupoint, right? When 3 Yangzi heard Tun Yun's words, his sharp eyes narrowed. Who sent you here? Right after Xiao Qin spoke, the palm wind formed a chi blade and smashed towards Tun Yun. At the same time, he grabbed Shangguan Wanrong and rushed towards the back of the mountain. If he wanted to bring her back, he could only go up the mountain from the back. Otherwise, the people in front would definitely see them. Roar! Don't even think about running away. Devouring Cloud roared. As he dodged the attack, he gave chase. 3 Yangzi was an alchemist, and although he didn't slack off in his cultivation, his fighting prowess wasn't something that a true fairy realm expert could compare to. After dodging for a while, his speed slowed down, and several wounds appeared on his body. Hiss! His clothes were torn, and blood seeped out of several wounds. He stumbled as he knelt, looking somewhat pathetic. This was because he couldn't let go of Shangguan Wanrong. Once he did, she would definitely run away. If he didn't have to take Shangguan Wanrong with him, he wouldn't have been forced into such a state. Chapter 1487. You want her? Alright, I'll give her to you. When 3 Yangzi saw the cloud-devouring divine beast pouncing towards him with its sharp claws, he hardened his heart and immediately pushed Shangguan Wanrong forward to use her as a human shield. Ah! Shangguan Wanrong, who had been caught off guard and pushed forward, felt the sharp claws coming towards her with a terrifying murderous intent. However, at this moment, the divine beast quickly retracted its attack. Due to the ferocity of the retraction, its entire body was flung heavily to the other side to avoid the attack on her. When she saw this, she was startled and looked at the mark left behind by the divine beast as it fell heavily to the ground. However, just as she was about to speak, she felt a heavy blow on the back of her neck and fainted. Roar! Devouring Cloud quickly leaped up and chased after them. However, the other party threw an object at it and it exploded in front of it with a bang. A pungent smell wafted out and it felt its legs give way. Its entire body collapsed and it could only watch as that person carried its master's mother and disappeared without a trace in the span of a few breaths. On the other side, Fengjiu, who had opened her meridian points, did not leave through the main entrance. Instead, she circled around to the back of the mountain, intending to leave through the back of the mountain. The terrain there was steep and the sheer cliffs and precipitous cliffs could not be climbed. The only way was to fly. However, there were barriers and formations set up there to prevent the sect's disciples from entering and exiting from the back of the mountain. However, barriers and formations were of little use to her. However, because the back of the mountain was large and took up a large area, she brushed past 3 Yangtze, who was carrying her mother back, without realizing it at all. When she quickly swept past the formation, crossed the barrier, and arrived outside to search for Devouring Cloud's aura, she saw that it was shaking its fur and standing up. Devouring Cloud, where's my mother? Her heart sank when she caught a whiff of the aura in the air that had yet to completely disperse and saw some blood dripping onto the ground. She was captured by that old fellow. Devouring Cloud replied and said guiltily, Master, that old fellow's battle power was not very high but his medicine was very powerful. I don't know what kind of medicine it was that made me so weak that I couldn't chase after him. It was reasonable to say that it was already a mythological beast. Ordinary drugs and poisons wouldn't have any effect on it. However, it didn't know where that thing came from, but even a mythological beast like it couldn't avoid it. Where are you going? Did he escape from the back of the mountain? Her gaze landed in the direction they had come from. She thought that 3 Yangtze would make a move on her mother outside, but she did not expect that he would bring her back to the sect. He would definitely not dare to let anyone know that he had done such a thing. He could only enter the sect from the back mountain and return to 3 Yang Peak. If that was the case, she took a deep breath as her mind raced. Bringing her mother back, did that mean that he really intended to use her body as a human furnace to refine her? If it was a human furnace, then it had to be alive in order for the spiritual power to circulate in the body. Swallow Cloud, go into the space. We'll go back later. She said as she stretched out her hand and had it return to the space. Looking at the traces of fighting around her, her eyes turned cold. She quickly left and went back the way she came. Since she was at 3 Yang Peak, she had to go back. She didn't believe that she couldn't find a chance to save her mother. At the same time, the people in the sect who heard the noise were surprised. Because the noise came from near the Danyang sect, they sent disciples out to investigate. Chapter 1488. He was terrified and uneasy, afraid that things would really happen as he thought, so he quickly rushed down. When the disciple guarding the sect saw Duan Mubai, he smiled and asked, Uncle Master Duan, why are you here? Where are you going in such a hurry? I'm going out to check what that sound is about. Open the door quickly, Duan Mubai said with a pale face, and his voice was somewhat unsteady. Uncle Master Duan, you don't have to go out. I've already sent a disciple out to check. He'll be back in a while. Open the door. He shouted in a deep voice, and his hands were already tightly clenched into fists with blue veins popping out. Seeing this, the disciple was shocked and didn't dare to say anything more. He quickly opened the door and let him out. Seeing Duan Mubai rush out and disappear in the blink of an eye, he couldn't help but mutter, what's wrong with Uncle Master Duan? Why does he look like he's crazy? Wanrong? Wanrong? Junior sister. Junior sister. Duan Mubai shouted and searched around the forest like a madman. His voice that contained spirit energy also reverberated in the air and entered the ears of the disciples who were checking in the forest. It seems to be Uncle Master Duan's voice. He seems to be calling Uncle Master Shengguan. But I heard that Uncle Master Shengguan left the sect this morning. As the disciples discussed among themselves, they looked at each other and walked towards the source of the sound. Not long after, they saw Duan Mubai searching around in the forest. They shouted, "Martial Uncle Duan, we found traces of a fight ahead. There are also bloodstains. Do you want to take a look?" Blood? Hearing this, Duan Mubai's heart seemed to sink to the bottom. Could it be that junior sister? He staggered forward and followed them to the place where the blood was dripping. Looking at the surrounding traces and the blood on the ground, he asked in a trembling voice, "Where is she? Did you see anyone?" "No, when we came, we only saw traces of a fight, but we didn't see anyone," a disciple said and looked at the pale Duan Mubai. He hesitated and asked, "Uncle Master Duan, were you calling Uncle Master Shengguan just now? We heard that she left this morning." "Don't worry, it shouldn't be her." Duan Mubai stood there in a daze as if he didn't hear anything. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Not her. How could it not be her? She had left the sect today. Although her master had gone into seclusion yesterday, who would have known? Master, yes, master. He seemed to have thought of something as he turned around and rushed back. On the other side, Fengjiu went straight to the back of the 9th summit and went up from there. The reason why 3 Yangzi had set up layers of barriers and formations here was to prevent people from having the chance to come up from behind. Perhaps it was because he was too confident that she could come and go freely. When she climbed up the 9th peak from behind, 3 Yangzi locked the unconscious Shangguan Wanrong in his elixir refining cave. Looking at the wounds on his body and the deep claw marks on his arm, his eyes couldn't help but turn gloomy. Who was it? Who knew that he would make a move against Shangguan Wanrong? Duan Mubai? It couldn't be him. His contracted beast was only a peak-level holy beast. If it wasn't him, who else could it be? Chapter 1489. Damn it. My hand that he looked at the bleeding water and immediately took off his blood-stained outer clothes. He took out medicine to stop the bleeding and bandaged the wound. Because he was injured, his entire aura was gloomy. If he didn't need Shangguan Wanrong, this living furnace, he would definitely kill her to vent his anger. Not long after, he bandaged his wound and put on a new coat. He stared at the unconscious Shangguan Wanrong on the ground and snorted heavily. He dragged her inside. Outside, at the 9th peak's entrance, Duan Mubai said to the 2 nascent soul cultivators, "I have something important to report to Master." The 2 glanced at him and said in a deep voice, "The peak master has ordered that he won't see anyone while he's in seclusion." His eyes were bloodshot and he shouted, "This is an emergency. We only obey the peak master's orders. If it's an emergency, you're the peak master's eldest disciple. Go and deal with it yourself." One of them said and didn't let him go. "What if I have to go in?" Duan Mubai clenched his fist and asked. "Then don't blame us for being impolite." The 2 of them said unyieldingly. Hearing this, Duan Mubai took out his long sword and the spiritual power in his body surged. His gaze was firm and he shouted, "Today, I must go in and see Master. Whoever dares to stop me, don't blame me for being impolite." Seeing this, the 2 nascent soul cultivators were slightly surprised. They couldn't help but look at each other. However, they didn't move away. Instead, they surged the spiritual power in their bodies and prepared to fight at any time. "You're not our opponent. Hurry up and go back. Otherwise, we'll only send you back by force," one of the nascent soul cultivators said in a deep voice. Who knew that just as he finished speaking, he saw Duan Mubai attack them with his sword. Seeing this, one of them immediately attacked. Whoosh! "I must go in today." The sharp sword chi carried the pressure of a nascent soul stage cultivator. Even though Duan Mubai was also a nascent soul stage cultivator like the 2 of them, the nascent soul stage cultivators who cultivated battle techniques and the aura of spiritual power were different. He clearly knew that he wasn't a match for them in terms of strength, but when he thought that Shengwan Wanrong was most likely in his master's hands, he couldn't ignore it and watch his master kill his disciple. Not only would that ruin his reputation, but it would also cause his junior sister to lose her life. As a disciple and a senior brother, it was one thing if he didn't know, but since he knew, he couldn't pretend not to know. Bang! A nascent soul cultivator brushed away his sword and sent him flying several meters away with a palm strike. Because he was the peak master's disciple, this palm strike was still somewhat lenient. With us here, you won't be able to enter. Don't waste your time. The nascent soul powerhouse retracted his hand and straightened his back as he looked at Duan Mubai, who had retreated a few meters away. He didn't understand. Why did this person go in? His master had already given the order to go into seclusion to refine pills, yet he still wanted to go in and disturb. As a pill master, how could he not know that pill masters hated to be disturbed the most among pill masters? Eldest senior brother. Eldest senior brother, what are you doing here? The other people who heard the news rushed over. When they saw Duan Mubai, who was holding a sword and full of anger, staring at the two nascent soul cultivators, they couldn't help but be startled. They hurried to his side and supported him. Eldest senior brother, what happened? Chapter 1490. Immediately, he looked at the two nascent soul cultivators with displeasure. What's wrong with you guys? Don't you know him? He's our master's eldest disciple and our senior brother. You guys are too reckless. The two nascent soul cultivators looked at each other and retracted their aura. He wants to go in and see the peak master. However, the peak master has ordered that he is in seclusion and will not see anyone. You guys know this too. Since you guys are here, bring him back. As they spoke, the two of them took a few steps back and continued to guard the entrance of the mountain. Hearing this, the few of them were slightly startled and looked at Duan Mubai in surprise. Senior brother, you want to see master? Their master had ordered that he was in seclusion and would not see anyone. They were afraid that he would not be able to enter. However, why did he want to see their master? Because of this, he even fought with the two nascent soul cultivators. Duan Mubai took a deep breath and said to the few of them, little junior sister might be in danger. I have to go in and report this to master. He did not dare to tell them that he suspected their master of capturing little junior sister because they would not believe it either. Not to mention them, even he wouldn't have believed it if he hadn't seen too many of their master's abnormalities during this period of time. When the few of them heard his words, their expressions changed. What? Little junior sister is in danger? Could it be that the commotion outside was? Thinking of this, they could not help but become nervous and looked at the two nascent soul cultivators. Such a big thing has happened. Of course we have to report it to master. Hurry and get out of the way. This matter cannot be delayed. As for the two nascent soul cultivators, they didn't seem to have expected this and hesitated for a moment. What are you guys waiting for? That's our little junior sister, our master's last disciple. You guys know how much our master values her. If anything happens to her, do you think you can bear the consequences? Hearing this, the two nascent soul cultivators frowned and whispered. Then, they said to the few of them, since that's the case, you guys wait here for a while. I'll go in and report. If the peak master wants to see you, he'll let you in. With that, he turned around and walked inside. When 3 Yangzi heard the nascent soul cultivator's report, he said with a gloomy expression, let them go back. Since he had disappeared, he would let them search for him. I'm refining pills right now, so I can't be disturbed. Yes. The nascent soul cultivator replied before turning to leave. The peak lord said that you should go and look for him if he's missing. He can't be disturbed right now. Hearing this, Duan Mubai pulled his junior brothers over and whispered a few words into their ears. Then, they went up to them and said, "Is that so? Our master really won't see us? Then where are we going to find him?" As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly hugged them. "Eldest senior brother, quickly go in." "Thank you very much," Duan Mubai said as he hurried inside. The two nascent soul cultivators were stunned and immediately struggled. "Let go of me. What are you doing?" Before they could finish speaking, they smelled a strange fragrance. Then, their bodies went limp and they fell to the ground. "Hey, didn't I say that this pill was useful? I just refined it not long ago." Even nascent soul cultivators would collapse under it. Chapter 1491. The few of them looked at each other for a moment, then nodded and quickly rushed inside. They also wanted to see what was going on. Did junior sister's disappearance have anything to do with Master? Since eldest senior brother was so nervous, could it be that he knew something? Duan Mubai, who had gone in first, came to the bamboo house. He looked around but couldn't find her. He paused and thought that she might be in the cave that Master used to refine elixirs, so he went in again. However, when he got closer to the area of the cave, he saw that there were many formations set up in places that didn't have formations before. He went around the formations and came to the innermost area. He saw that the cave was right in front of him, but he couldn't go any further because there was a barrier set up there. A barrier set up by a fairy realm expert was definitely not something he could break. When he saw this, he shouted, "Master! Master! Disciple Mubai has something important to report. Master, Disciple Mubai has something important to report." At the same time, in the cave, 3 Yangzi was preparing the elixirs and arranging the required elixirs. Unexpectedly, he heard a voice coming from outside. When he heard the voice, his face immediately darkened. He had clearly told them not to disturb him, but he still came in at this time. Also, why didn't the 2 nascent soul cultivators guard the mountain gate and let him in? "Master, Master, Disciple Mubai has something important to report." When he heard the voice coming from outside, he shouted with a gloomy face, "Impudent! Didn't I tell you not to disturb me here? You've turned a deaf ear to my words. Master, junior sister is missing. I only found traces of fighting and blood outside the sect, but I didn't see junior sister." "Master! Nonsense! Your junior sister has already left the mountain to train, how could she be missing? With her strength, cultivation, and intelligence, you don't have to worry about her. She'll be fine." 3 Yangzi spoke in a low voice while glancing at Shangguan Wanrong, who was unconscious and had her hands and feet tied up. "No one could find her here. Master, please come out. I have something to ask you." Duan Mubai said again. He was more and more certain that Shangguan Wanrong was in Master's cave. "If you have something to say, wait until I come out of seclusion. Go back immediately." Hearing this, his heart was filled with unease. He immediately asked, "Master, is junior martial sister in the cave?" "How dare you? Duan Mubai, how dare you?" Inside the cave, 3 Yangzi's face was ashen as he shouted in a gloomy voice. His entire body was trembling with anger. At that moment, he could no longer bear it and walked out. "Do you know what you're saying? Go back immediately. Otherwise, I will expel you from the sect today." After walking out of the cave, 3 Yangzi glared at Duan Mubai with rage in his eyes. A trace of killing intent rose in his heart. He wanted to refine a life-saving pill. Whoever dared to obstruct him would be going against him. As for those who were against him, he would definitely not be lenient. If they didn't let him live, he would let them die. Even his disciple was the same. There was nothing more important than his life. Seeing him come out, Duan Mubai's heart ached unbearably, and he immediately knelt down with a plop. "Master, little junior sister is your disciple, please let her go." Master's reputation and prestige shouldn't be destroyed here, nor should it be destroyed like this. Chapter 1492. Master. Don't make the same mistake again. Pft. Before he could finish speaking, he was struck in the chest by San Yangzi's attack. He grunted and coughed up a mouthful of blood. He stared at his master in disbelief, unable to accept the fact that he had just attacked him. In his heart, his master was like a father, but now, his master, whom he had always respected, heard him. This is a lesson for not obeying your master's orders. Get back immediately. 3 Yangzi shouted with a gloomy face, staring at him with a sharp gaze. Duan Mubai wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth, still kneeling on the ground. He raised his head to look at his master, who was standing in the barrier, and kowtowed. Master, please let junior sister go. Master, please let junior sister go. Hearing this, 3 Yangzi was furious. When he saw the other disciples running over, he immediately raised his hand, gathered his spiritual energy, and fiercely struck out with his palm again. When the spiritual energy surging in his hand turned into a fierce airflow, it sent Duan Mubai, who was kneeling on the ground, flying a few meters away. Eldest senior brother. When the people who were running over saw this, they could not help but exclaim and quickly went forward to help him up. However, when they saw that Duan Mubai, who was being helped up, was bleeding from his mouth and his face was as pale as a sheet, they were shocked and quickly took out elixirs for him to consume. Eldest senior brother, hang in there. Oh my God! Why did master hit him so hard? Was he trying to kill eldest senior brother? Cough cough. Pft. Duan Mubai coughed lightly and felt the blood in his throat gushing out again. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end, because of the heavy injury, his hand drooped down weakly, closed his eyes, and fainted. Eldest senior brother. The few of them were shocked and hurriedly shouted, but they saw that he did not have any reaction at all. The second-ranked alchemist checked Duan Mubai's pulse and said to the few of them, Eldest senior brother has only fainted, but his organs have been injured. We have to quickly send him back for treatment. Then let's quickly send eldest senior brother for treatment. The third and fourth-ranked alchemists said as they helped him up. They looked at their master who was standing in the barrier with a complicated expression. They had seen with their own eyes how their master had mercilessly struck out with his palm. That was an attack from a fairy realm expert, and their eldest senior brother did not even try to dodge it. Wasn't their master deliberately trying to take their eldest senior brother's life? In the end, what was the reason for master to be so heavy-handed? You two send eldest senior brother for treatment first, I'll be there soon. The second-ranked alchemist said, motioning for the two to leave first. All right. Then, be careful, second senior brother. The two of them lowered their voices as they spoke. After all, if their master had made a move on their eldest senior brother, who knew if he would also make a move on their second senior brother? Thinking of this, he felt a little uneasy. What was going on? Why did it feel like everything was in a mess once little junior sister went missing? Hey, do you think I'm eldest senior brother? If something goes wrong, I'll be the first to run. Don't worry. Ruan Changchun grinned. He was the second-ranked alchemist, but his brain was as sharp as a melon. After watching them leave, he put on a solemn expression and walked forward. When he reached the barrier, he stopped and bowed to his master who was inside. Disciple Changchun pays his respects to master. Chapter 1493. Hearing this, Wan Changchun smiled and waved his hand. No. Master, you've misunderstood. I just wanted to ask, do you need someone to help you refine pills in the cave residence? I can help. As he spoke, his voice paused and he grinned. Master, you know Changchun the best. Changchun has never questioned master's orders, right? Although eldest senior brother said that master captured little junior sister and wanted to kill her, I feel that eldest senior brother must be imagining things. As he spoke, he paid close attention to the young man's expression. When the young man said that his master had captured his junior sister and wanted to kill her, the strange look in his eyes made his heart sink. Was it really his master who did it? Was it because of this that eldest senior brother found out about it? Was that why he was so heavy-handed? The more he thought about it, the colder his heart became. He was shocked and in disbelief. However, he still had a smile on his face, as if he was heartless. There's no need. You may leave. Look after your senior brothers. Just don't disturb me while I'm refining pills. 3 Yangzi's voice became gentler. He looked deeply at Wan Changchun and said, as long as I successfully refine this batch of pills, I will reward you well. Yes, thank you, master. He was pleasantly surprised and hurriedly thanked him. Then, he turned around and left. As he turned around, the smile on his face disappeared and his expression became serious. Feng Jiu, who was in the dark, watched this scene quietly. His eyes moved slightly as he thought to himself, how should I save her? When should I save her? How should I leave after saving her? I have to think about it carefully. However, I can be sure that this is not a good time to make a move. To avoid alerting the enemy, she could only continue to hide and wait for the best time to make a move. 3 Yangzi was at the fairy realm, while she was at the nascent soul stage. Although there was a difference in their levels, 3 Yangzi did not specialize in fighting. Hence, she still had a chance of winning if they fought. However, the problem was, how could she send her mother out safely after saving her? Fighting with 3 Yangzi would definitely alarm the entire sect. If the entire sect were to surround and attack her, then how would she be able to safely rescue her mother? As for tearing apart 3 Yangzi's mask, that was impossible. If the people in the sect knew about it, they would definitely not allow 3 Yangzi to kill his disciple. They would only help to hide the truth. If a scandal were to spread, it would only affect the sect. Furthermore, this was the basic survival of the strong cultivators in the world of cultivation. Which place did not have unspeakable things that no one knew about? Which person's hands were not stained with the blood of innocent people? They would only see what was more beneficial. Hence, she could not count on the people in the sect to deal with it. On the other side, Wan Changchun, who had left, headed towards his eldest senior brother's cave abode on the 8th peak. He saw that there were many people gathered outside the cave abode. It was obvious that it was because the news of his injury had spread. His disciples had all rushed over, but they were all gathered outside the cave abode, unable to enter. Chapter 1494. What are you all doing here? He shouted with a stern face and glanced at the crowd. Martial Uncle Ruan, I heard that our master is injured. Is it serious? Luo Heng asked, looking at Wan Changchun who was walking over with his hands behind his back. Wan Changchun glanced at him and said, your master is fine, go do what you need to do, don't block here. Martial Uncle Ruan, we want to see our master and see his injuries. A disciple mustered up his courage and said. Wan Changchun glanced at them and said, what's there to see? If he wants to see you, he will let you come over. Since he didn't summon you, go back first. He paused and shouted again, why aren't you leaving? What are you waiting for? Hearing his words, everyone looked at each other and left one after another. Luo Heng looked at Wan Changchun with some doubt, then looked at his master's cave residence. He felt strange but couldn't say anything, so he could only leave with everyone. After everyone left, Wan Changchun walked into the cave residence and saw Duan Mu Bai who was still unconscious. He asked, how is eldest senior brother? His injuries are not light. Fortunately, he has already taken a healing pill, but the doctor just said that he will need at least 1 or 2 days to wake up. Moreover, he will not be able to use his spiritual power for a month after he wakes up. If he is not nursed properly, I'm afraid that he will have a permanent illness in the future. The third-ranked alchemist sighed and said, Second senior brother, why do you think Master did this? This is eldest senior brother. He actually hit him so hard. Wan Changchun waved his hand. Okay, let's not talk about this for now. Let's wait for eldest senior brother to wake up. He pondered for a while and said to the two, There is something I want to discuss with you. The two looked at each other and asked, Is it about little junior sister? Wan Changchun glanced at them and nodded. That's right, that's it. I think you should have guessed something. This matter is definitely unusual. There are always things that can't be exposed. However, this matter is somewhat related to us. Moreover, it's related to junior sister. I want to ask you, what do you think? Second senior brother, if you have something to say, just say it. We'll listen to you. The two said in unison. Alright, this is my plan. If it was us, we would definitely not be able to enter the cave where Master is refining pills. However, in this three-yang peak, other than us, there is no one else who has the ability to manage this matter. Therefore, I think that we should go to the other peaks. We are familiar with the disciples of the other peak masters. He told the two of them about his plan. He planned to go to the disciples of the other peak masters and chat with them. Then, he would casually spread the news. He believed that once they heard the news, they would definitely report it to their masters. This way, they would not need to instigate the other peak masters to come and check it out. Now that the power of each peak was equal, the strength of each peak master in the sect was about the same. If the other peak masters knew that their master was going to concoct a heaven-defying divine pill, the other peak masters would not be able to sit still. Okay, we'll do it now. The two of them left after listening to him. Chapter 1495. In the evening, when the disciples of each peak reported the news to their masters, all the peak masters were secretly surprised. Is it true? Is that 3-Yangzi really in seclusion to refine some kind of heaven-defying pill? A peak master stared at his disciple and asked. Yes, master. This is what I heard from junior brother Wan. A middle-aged man said respectfully. Hearing this, the peak master frowned and said, If it's true, why would he come to tell you? This matter is a little strange. Master, you don't know. He came to find me to drink and have a heart-to-heart talk because his eldest senior brother seemed to have offended their master because of this matter. His eldest senior brother was seriously injured and is still lying in the cave. Junior brother Wan was in a bad mood because of this, so he came to find me to drink. After drinking, he told me about it. The disciple said and continued, this disciple felt that this matter was very important. After sending junior brother Wan back, I immediately came to report it. If some kind of heaven-defying pill really appeared, the 3-Yangzi Peak's limelight would definitely overshadow ours. This disciple felt that no matter what, I had to report it to Master and ask Master to make a decision. Hearing this, the peak master stroked his beard and pondered for a while. He said, even if this matter is true, what reason do we have to stop it? If the sect master knows about this, I'm afraid. Master, the 3-Yangzi Peak is known as the leader of all the peaks in the Danyang sect. If we really let 3-Yangzi refine some kind of heaven-defying pill, I'm afraid that when the time comes, the masters will have to bow their heads and smile apologetically when they see him. This disciple doesn't mind being ridiculed. However, this disciple is unwilling to listen to the people outside saying that our peaks are inferior to the 3-Yangzi Peak. Hearing this, the peak master's face darkened. He accidentally stopped stroking his beard and even pulled out 2 strands of his beard, causing him to hiss in pain. He glanced at his disciple awkwardly. After thinking for a while, he said, if this matter is true, then come here. He gestured for him to come closer and whispered a few words. Then, he waved his hand and gestured, go. Yes, disciple will do it right away. The disciple's face lit up and he hurried out. At that moment, in the cave abode on the 9th summit of Three Yang Peak, the unconscious Shangguan Wanrong woke up when she smelled the pungent smell of medicine. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw Three Yangzi bringing out a whip that was soaked in medicine. He brought it before her. Awake? It's good that you're awake. San Yangzi held the whip in his hand and stopped 3 steps away from her. He looked at her and said, Wanrong, you can't blame me. If it weren't for me, you would still be trapped in the Shangguan family, wouldn't you? Don't worry, I will make sure that you are of the greatest use. I won't let you come to the human world for nothing. No one outside knows that you are with me, so you still have a very glorious identity. You are the last disciple of me, Three Yangzi. Bah! Shangguan Wanrong looked at him coldly. Hypocrite. He was worse than a beast. You don't deserve to be my teacher. Hee, it's alright, go ahead and scold me. Soon, you won't be able to scold me anymore. Three Yangzi smiled carelessly. He swung the whip in his hand and said, Do you know what this is? This whip has been soaked in medicine since I brought you into the sect. Do you know what it is used for? Chapter 1496. Your spiritual gathering body is a mobile spiritual energy storage device. To Master, you are the best candidate for the human furnace. Do you know why Master must let you cultivate to the nascent soul stage? Because the nascent soul that you condense when you are born will be the best guiding medicine in the human furnace, a guiding medicine that can let Master live. He stared at her with a slightly crazed expression. You should be glad that you were chosen by Master. This kind of opportunity is not something that just anyone can have. Don't worry, after you die, Master will take care of your family. Sacrificing you in exchange for the prosperity of your entire family, I think, they will be very happy. Crazy. Shangguan Wanrong stared at him and spat out these 2 words. Yes, he was already crazy. In her opinion, he was already crazy. He only wanted to live, so he did not hesitate to pay any price, even if it meant sacrificing the lives of others. Because in his opinion, no one's life was more important than his. He was afraid of death, so he tried every means to find a chance to live, to find a chance to extend his life, to find a chance to increase his lifespan. He even forgot that he was an alchemist, forgot that he was someone's master, forgot that he was someone's master, forgot that he was someone's original character. He only wanted to live. He only wanted to live. If this kind of person was not crazy, then what was he? Swish. Slap. The whip that was stained with medicinal liquid was thrown out after she shouted, crazy. With a swish, it swept through the air, bringing with it a sharp gust of wind. With a slap, it fiercely landed on her body, causing her to scream out in pain. Ah! On her white dress, a whip mark was flung from her shoulder to her body. Her white dress had been torn apart by the lash of the whip, and scarlet blood seeped through her clothes, causing her to tremble in fear. A strong medicinal fragrance also spread in the air with the whip, especially when the whip landed on Shangguan Wanrong's body. The medicinal liquid on the whip seemed to have seeped into her flesh as the wound split open. Hiss. Ah! The wound was painful, accompanied by a burning sensation. It was only 1 whip, but she felt as if something was not quite right, as if there was something not quite right about her. How is it? This medicine is not bad, right? This is the primer that stimulates the medicine in your body. You don't know about it, do you? I've already drugged you long ago, but since it's sealed on your arm, the medicinal effect hasn't spread. Therefore, with your ability, you won't be able to detect any problems. Three Yangzi smiled and threw the whip back into the medicinal bath, soaking it repeatedly. Not long after, he took it out again. He stared at Shangguan Wanrong and said confidently, not to mention you, even your eldest senior brother Mu Bai wouldn't be able to detect anything strange. Swish. Pa. Ah. Shangguan Wanrong screamed again. That kind of pain was really too unbearable. Her wound had been torn open by the whip. Her flesh had split open and blood was seeping out. The medicinal liquid on the whip had also seeped into her flesh. The burning pain was like a red-hot soldering iron sticking to her wound. Chapter 1497. 3 Yangzi looked at her pale and sweaty face and hurriedly said, Wanrong, you have to hold on. This is something you have to go through. I don't want to do this to you, but this medicine is only effective in this way. Only in this way can it seep into your body. Every lash of the whip will hurt you so much that you'd rather die. The burning sensation is the effect of the medicine. You have to hold on. You are the human furnace that I have chosen. I have placed all my hopes on you. I have placed all of my hopes on you. As he spoke, he pinched her mouth and forced her to open it. He then took out a pill and forced it into her mouth. At the same time, he lashed out with the whip again. Whooshing sounds were accompanied by a series of heart-wrenching screams. However, these screams could only echo in the cave and could not be heard from outside. In the evening, when the sky gradually darkened, a few peak leaders could not help but personally come to 3 Yangtze Peak to investigate. However, when they arrived at the 9th peak, they were stopped by 2 nascent soul stage cultivators. The peak leader has ordered that no one is to disturb him while he is refining pills. As the 2 of them spoke, they stared at the peak leaders cautiously. These people came for no reason. Could it be that they were asked by the peak leader's disciples? What were they trying to do? Why were they causing trouble again and again? We have some matters to discuss with your peak leader. You can leave. He won't blame you. One of the peak leaders waved his hand and said. But. The 2 nascent soul stage cultivators hesitated and frowned. No buts. We will bear the consequences. The other person said and strode in. At this moment, Huan Changchun's voice came from behind. Peak leaders. Why are you here? Are you looking for our master? But our master is refining pills and will not see anyone. Huan Changchun walked in front of them with a face full of vigilance and said with a smile, Everyone, please go back. Please do not disturb my master's refining. One of the peak leaders saw Huan Changchun and raised his eyebrows. Didn't you say that you were drunk? How did you get drunk so quickly? Hee, my 2 junior brothers gave me a hangover pill, so when I heard that the peak masters were here, I hurried over to take a look. Our master has instructed us not to meet anyone who comes, and not to meet anyone. He smiled embarrassedly and kept blocking them. Really? However, we have an extremely important matter to discuss with your master. We really have to see him. Originally, he still had some doubts in his heart. But now, when he saw the panic and obstruction in Huan Changchun's eyes, he was even more certain that it was true that 3 Yangtze was refining a heaven-defying pill. Immediately, the few of them looked at each other and walked in with large strides. Hey, peak masters, don't be like this. Huan Changchun shouted as he followed behind them. Seeing that they were heading towards the bamboo hut, he said, My master is concocting pills in the cave, we really cannot disturb him. Hearing this, one of the peak leaders' eyes flickered. He turned around and glanced at him, seemingly deep in thought. Chapter 1498. When the others heard this, they all fell silent. That's right, 3 Yangtze usually only refined pills around the bamboo hut. Only when he was afraid of being disturbed would he go to his cave residence to refine pills. This meant that this pill was extremely important to 3 Yangtze. They all had different thoughts. When they arrived at the cave residence, they saw layers of formations set up outside. There was even a barrier set up in front of the innermost cave residence. One of them looked at the others and shouted, Brother 3 Yangtze, Brother 3 Yangtze. In the cave residence, 3 Yangzi was tired from whipping and had to prepare the next batch of medicine. He walked out of the pill refining room to get something. Just as he was about to walk back, he heard the voice from outside. He couldn't help but frown. Brother 3 Yangzi. Brother 3 sons. The other person also raised his voice and called out. At this moment, the people outside couldn't help but look at each other when they heard that there was no movement in the cave residence. At this moment, Yuan Changchun, who was behind them, turned his gaze and quickly walked forward. Master, master, a few peak masters barged into 3 Yangzi Peak. They said that they have something to ask. If master doesn't come out, they will break through the barrier. Hearing this, a few peak masters were surprised and looked at him. They didn't say that they were going to break through the barrier. After all, they were in 3 Yangzi's territory. What they were doing now had already crossed the line. How could they break through the barrier? However, just as Yuan Changchun finished speaking, 3 Yangzi walked out angrily. What are you all trying to do? Disturbing me while I'm refining pills. Is this what you want to do? After being interrupted again and again, 3 Yangzi was extremely angry. His anger soared and couldn't be suppressed. Being questioned like this, a few people's faces were a little embarrassed. After all, what they were doing now was indeed beneath their dignity. They couldn't help but cough lightly. One of them said, "It's like this. We heard that brother 3 Yangzi is refining some heaven-defying pill. Therefore, we wanted to see if there's anything we can help with. Brother 3 Yangzi also knows that we can't compare to you in terms of pill refining. Therefore, we wanted to use this opportunity to learn from brother 3 Yangzi. Humph. 3 Yangzi snorted heavily and said, "You are all pill refining masters. Don't you know that it's taboo to be interrupted while refining pills? Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, after I finish refining this cauldron of pills, I will definitely report this to the sect master and ask him to uphold justice." Hearing this, their expressions stiffened. They never thought that they would be rejected so thoroughly. They couldn't help but look at each other. Suddenly, one of the alchemists was startled. He stared at the whip in the hands of the 3 sons with a strange expression. "Brother 3 sons, why would you use a whip to refine pills? Your whip seems to have been soaked in medicine." After the peak master spoke, the others finally noticed that 3 Yangzi was holding a whip in his hand. The whip was also soaked in medicinal liquid. No wonder when they smelled the medicinal smell just now, they thought it was coming from the pill refining cave and didn't pay much attention to it. However, looking at the current situation, what was going on? If he wanted to concoct pills, he could just concoct pills. Why would he need to use something like a whip? Just what kind of pill was he refining? Yuan Changchun lowered his gaze and covered his reddened eyes. Under his sleeves, his hands were tightly clenched into fists. He had noticed the whip when he had stepped out. That whip was soaked in medicinal liquid and emitted a medicinal smell. At the same time, there was also a faint smell of blood. Chapter 1499. Only when he heard their words did the furious 3 Yangzi realize that he had walked out just like that because he was angered by them. He didn't even put down his whip before them. When he met their probing and doubtful gazes, his heart skipped a beat. He forced himself to calm down and said, "Didn't I say that I was refining pills? I was taking the blood of a spiritual beast to make medicine when you guys came. We can understand taking the blood of a spiritual beast to make medicine, but why do you need to use a whip?" One of them asked suspiciously. They had used the blood of spiritual beasts to refine pills before. Some pills did require the blood of spiritual beasts, but didn't they use a knife to take the blood? Why did he use a whip? Or a whip soaked in medicinal liquid? What kind of pill was he concocting? Why did he use medicine in such a strange way? Hearing this, 3 Yangzi's gaze darkened and he said with a straight face, "Everyone has their own way of refining pills. My method of refining pills is naturally different from yours. What's so strange about that? It's getting late, you guys should go back as soon as possible. If you continue to disturb my refining, I will definitely report it to the sect leader. When that time comes, don't blame me for ignoring the propriety of my fellow sect members. Hearing this, the few of them hesitated. Since he had put it this way, there was no reason for them to investigate further. However, since they were unable to enter his place and investigate further, they were unwilling to accept it. They looked at the cave abode. It was right there. Did they really have to go back like this? If they went in to see what kind of spiritual medicine he was preparing to refine, perhaps they would be able to find out what kind of pill he was refining. Even as he pondered the matter, he suddenly heard a cacophony of voices ringing out. It didn't come from one place, but rather, the entire sect. It was as if something major had happened, and the entire sect was thrown into chaos. They turned around abruptly and saw smoke and fire rising in the sky, accompanied by cries of alarm that spread through the air. Not good, not good. Fire, 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 quick, put out the fire. Put out the fire. Someone come quickly. Put out the fire, put out the fire. Their expressions changed. What's going on? Why does it sound like there's a fire somewhere? At this moment, several disciples rushed in with panicked expressions. Not good, all the peaks are on fire. The fire has spread from the back of the mountain to several peaks. Several places in the sect are on fire. Master, quickly go back and take a look. Hearing this, several people's faces changed greatly, and they immediately asked in a stern voice, how did it catch fire? Where did the fire come from? The fire seems to have started in the kitchen. Once it got out of control, it spread everywhere. Some of the spirit beasts that were waiting to be slaughtered in the kitchen caught fire and ran out, causing the entire sect to be on fire. Right now, the disciples of all the peaks are already putting out the fire. Shifeng, the place where the fire broke out in our peak is the spiritual herb storehouse. We have to go back quickly. The few of them were shocked. Their eyes were filled with astonishment and disbelief. They didn't dare to stay any longer. They didn't even have the mood to investigate what 3 Yangzi was doing. They immediately rushed out and rushed back to the peak to put out the fire. Yuan Changchun was flabbergasted. Fire? How did their sect catch fire? This was something that had not happened for many years. Once the entire sect caught fire, it was not normal at all. Chapter 1500. Changchun, what are you still standing there for? Why don't you hurry up and see if our peak is on fire? 3 Yangzi stared at him with a dark expression as he spoke. There was a fire burning in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't leave this place because he was worried, he really wanted to walk out of the barrier and check the situation outside. Why would there be a fire for no reason? Moreover, the fire was so fierce that it had even spread to the peaks. If the other peaks were on fire, wouldn't their 3 Yangzi peak be on fire as well? Yes, I'll go take a look immediately. As he spoke, his gaze swept past the whip in his hand. However, he stood there, unable to move his feet. Seeing that he was staring at the whip in his hand, 3 Yangzi frowned and shouted in a deep voice, "Why aren't you going?" Yuan Changchun narrowed his eyes and walked away. Every step he took was especially heavy at this moment. Fengjiu, who was hiding in the dark, watched as 3 Yangzi walked in after looking around. At this moment, her eyes were filled with blood-red murderous intent as she stared at his figure. That whip, that whip. Her hands were tightly clenched into fists due to her anger and murderous intent. Her joints cracked. Although she had restrained her aura, her murderous intent still leaked out at this moment. "Master, I'm back." Tunyon leaped to her side. When he saw that her entire body was filled with murderous intent, he couldn't help but look towards the cave abode. There, 3 Yangzi's figure was walking in. You stand guard outside. I'll go in. She spoke slowly. Her voice paused after every word. It was obvious that she was restraining her murderous intent. Yes, master, be careful. Tun Yun replied and looked at her as he spoke. Fengjiu didn't speak again. Instead, she tapped the tip of her foot and leaped down. Step by step, she walked towards the barrier in front of her. When she arrived at the barrier, she reached out her hand and a wave of spirit force gathered in her palm. The originally invisible barrier suddenly gave off a halo of light. At this moment, she gathered spirit force in her hands and injected it into the flames. With a bang, the entire barrier shattered. In the airflow of the fairy realm expert dispersed along with the destruction of the barrier. A loud bang resounded, and it alarmed 3 Yangtze, who was in the cave. As for the other people in the 3 Yangtze peak, they didn't even notice the noise from the 9th peak. They were either called to help put out the fire or to check if their peaks were also on fire. The entire sect was filled with chaotic noises, so no one noticed the sound. Fengjiu walked in almost at the same moment the barrier was broken. Smelling the strong medicinal smell in the cave, as well as the smell of blood, she released her killing intent and pressure at this moment. Since she had chosen to make a move, there was no need for her to hide anything at this moment. Since 3 Yangtze had dared to attack her mother and hurt her mother, she definitely wouldn't let him off easily. The moment the barrier was broken, 3 Yangtze sensed it. Just as he turned around and was about to walk out, he didn't see anyone coming in from outside. Instead, he felt a wave of bloodthirsty murderous intent surging in from outside. That bloodthirsty murderous intent was bone-chilling. It was as cold as ice that had been frozen for 1,000 years. At the same time, it shocked him, and he became alert. Who is it? Come out. Chapter 1501. Under the illumination of the lights in the cave, a figure was reflected on the wall. It was slowly walking in from outside. When he saw the slender figure, 3 Yangtze squinted his eyes. Soon after, he saw an unfamiliar youth in green robes walk in from outside. He looked to be about 18 or 19 years old. He had delicate features and a slender figure. He looked as if he would be blown away by a gust of wind. However, at this moment, this youth, who looked as if he would be blown away by a gust of wind, was exuding a terrifying, icy, murderous aura. This was especially so for his cold eyes. They were like those of a ferocious beast that had set its eyes on its prey. It gave off a chilling feeling. Who are you? What are your motives for sneaking into the 3 Yang sect? 3 Yangtze shouted fiercely. However, before he could finish speaking, he saw a flash of cold light. The youth had unknowingly held a dagger in his hand, and he attacked him at a ghostly speed. He was so shocked that he instinctively retreated. However, no matter how fast he was, he could not outrun the youth's strange lightning-like movement technique. Whoosh! Hiss! The sharp dagger sliced through his neck by a hair's breadth, but he managed to avoid the fatal spot. Even so, the dagger still sliced through his cheek, and as blood seeped out, a flash of panic appeared in 3 Yangtze's eyes. He cried out in surprise and quickly covered the wound on his face. The warm blood stained his hands. As it dyed his hands red, his heart started to beat in fear. Who is this person? With such strange movement technique and such skills, if he had not dodged quickly just now, he was afraid that the dagger would have slit his throat. When he thought of this, he was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. Who are you? What do you want? Do you want an elixir? I can give you an elixir. Even though he was a strong fighter in the fairy realm, he was still far from being a real killer or a cultivator who was good at fighting. Moreover, the person in front of him clearly had the aura of a nascent soul cultivator, but his murderous aura was not inferior to that of a fairy realm cultivator. As he retreated step by step, Fengjiu closed in. When she arrived inside and saw her mother, who was chained up and covered with countless wounds. Her eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty, murderous intent. She swept her gaze across the room and stared at him coldly. In the next moment, her figure moved, and the sharp dagger attacked. Whoosh! Swish! Bang! Hiss! There wasn't much space in the cave, so the dagger's attack was nimble. On the other hand, 3 Yangzi couldn't hit Fengjiu even after lashing out with his whip a few times. Instead, he destroyed several items in the cave. Seeing the spiritual medicine that he had prepared for a long time being destroyed, he felt his heart ache. I'm going to kill you. Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Fengjiu said coldly, leaning forward to attack again. The two of them fought back and forth in the cave. 3 Yangzi's combat power was obviously inferior to Fengjiu's, so he gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. Feeling that he was no match for this young man, he didn't dare to stay any longer and planned to leave the cave to ask for help. As long as he called for help, there was no way he could escape from the Koryang sect. Swish! After pulling out a whip, he flashed towards the entrance of the cave. However, a cold and bloodthirsty voice sounded at this moment. You want to escape? You can't escape. Chapter 1502. Ah! He cried out in alarm. In that instant, the aura of death enveloped him. The cold killing intent behind him seeped into his bones. He felt a chill run from the soles of his feet to his heart, causing fear and panic to rise from the bottom of his heart. Bang! Fengjiu dragged him back and threw him to the ground. He crashed into something that had collapsed and fell to the ground in a sorry state. Just as he was about to stand up, a sharp air current struck him down. Whoosh! Pa! A sharp air blade cut through the air. That was the sound of a whip lashing out. With a pa sound, it landed on 3 Yangs who was about to stand up. Immediately, his gray clothes were torn apart by the whip. His flesh was torn open and fresh blood seeped out. Ah! A shrill scream came out of his mouth. At that moment, he personally tasted the heart-wrenching pain of the whip that was soaked in medicine. That pain was worse than death, causing him to almost faint. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Pa! Pa pa pa! Ah! Don't! Don't hit me! Don't! I'll die. With every whip that was laced with hidden force, 3 Yangs on the ground curled up into a ball and hugged his head tightly. His body was hit by one whip after another. The pain was indescribable. He could even feel the anger of the youth in green. Every whip was laced with his anger and killing intent. He wanted to kill him. Therefore, every lash of the whip was laced with hidden force, and every lash tore his skin and flesh apart. You can't take it anymore. Aren't you very good at bullying people? Don't you like to use a whip to hit people? I'll let you have a good taste of it. Fengjiu said in a cold voice. Her hands didn't stop moving. Her whip lashed out fiercely and fiercely. Every whip contained a hidden force, which was enough to make his skin split open but not fatal. Don't hit me. 3 Yangzi's voice sounded weak as he curled up on the ground. The smell of blood in the air was also spreading due to his injuries. Fengjiu looked at the person curled up on the ground on the verge of death, unable to even stand up. Only then did he coldly glance at him, flung the whip aside, and quickly walked to his mother's side. Mother? Mother? She called out in a low voice, but she saw that she did not react at all. Her tattered clothes were not clean at all. If they were not torn, they were stained with blood, which made her heart ache. That 3 Yangzi, whose breathing was slightly chaotic from the beating, held his head with both hands. He watched as Fengjiu ran to Shengguan Wanrong's side. Thus, he quietly took out a medicinal pill and swallowed it, alleviating the intense pain in his body that made him wish he was dead. He was sure that if he didn't take any medicine or something, he would definitely die from the searing pain. Mother? Did he hear wrongly? This youngster who came out of nowhere called Shengguan Wanrong mother. Was she his mother? He quietly turned his head to take a look. When he saw the youngster tugging at the black iron chain, he knew something was wrong. He lightly covered his chest with one hand and felt the effects of the medicine. He immediately gritted his teeth, jumped up, and fled outside. Shio shio. Chapter 1503. Damn it. His expression was shocked and his face instantly turned ashen. Even though he wasn't a doctor, he knew that if the silver needles didn't enter the main meridian, they would automatically spread. If they weren't forced out in time, their lives would be in danger. As he wanted to escape, he didn't dare to be careless and didn't dare to hope for a fluke. When he turned around and saw the youth trying to pull the black iron chain to save Shengguan Wanrong, he immediately turned around and sat down cross-legged on the other side of the cave wall. He circulated the aura in his body in an attempt to force out the silver needles on his back. At this moment, Fengjiu saw that her mother was on the verge of death and didn't chase after her. She tugged at the chains and found that they were like black iron chains that couldn't be cut. She immediately took out the Qin Feng sword and circulated spiritual power in her hand to cut open the black iron chains that bound her hands and feet. Clang! The crisp sound of metal breaking echoed and the black iron chains fell. Her mother lost her balance and fell to the ground. Fengjiu quickly put away the Qin Feng sword and supported her mother with one hand. After taking her mother's pulse, Fengjiu's expression slightly changed and she stuffed a pill into her mother's mouth. She looked around and saw a spirit herb that had fallen to the corner of the wall. She immediately went forward to pick it up and put it into her space. She then helped her mother out. When she arrived at the other side of the wall, 3 Yangzi was nowhere to be seen. At this moment, she could faintly hear the sound of Tun Yun coming from outside the cave. She quickly helped her mother out. When she saw Tun Yun fighting with 3 Yangzi, she put her mother down beside a tree and rushed up to him. Old thing. Today, no one can save you. I'll definitely take your life. If she didn't kill him, she would be able to quell the fire in her heart. This kind of person didn't deserve to live. Hearing this, 3 Yangzi was so scared that his legs went soft. He had seen this youth's skills. He didn't think that this youth was only talking to scare him. He really would kill him. At this moment, he couldn't care about anything else and hastily took out a distress signal from his universe bag. Because his heart was in a mess, he had forgotten that he had a distress signal. Ping! A blue flame flew into the night sky and scattered in the sky. In this chaotic sect, although the sound of fire being put out wasn't loud, it still attracted everyone's attention. Look! Isn't that our sect's distress signal? It seems to be a distress signal sent by 3 Yangtze Peak. Even if there's a fire, there shouldn't be a signal. Could it be that something has happened? Are you stupid? Can't see that it's a blue signal? That's a signal only from the peak. Something must have happened to 3 Yangtze's peak. Hearing this, everyone had different expressions on their faces. However, they were all disciples of the various peaks, and there was still a fire burning in their peaks. Naturally, they could not save him. Therefore, none of them said anything. Rather than caring for others, they should take care of themselves first. However, the other peak masters, as well as the sect elders and the sect leader, instantly realized that the sect's dark night had something to do with 3 Yangtze's distress signal after they saw the signal. All the peaks in the sect were on fire for no reason, and the entire sect fell into chaos. Because the 3 Yang peak wasn't on fire, the disciples rushed to the other peaks to help put out the fire. But at this time, the 3 Yang peak master sent out a distress signal. It seemed like someone had used a diversion tactic to lure the tiger away from the mountain. Chapter 1504. The sect master then led the others towards 3 Yang Peak on their flying swords. At this moment, Wan Changchun, who was at 3 Yang Peak, saw the distress signal and immediately ran towards the 9th peak. It was not because he was in a hurry to save his master but because he had a premonition that someone had come to save his little junior sister. However, who could this person be? How bold of him to act so recklessly in one of the sects of the 8 great empires and set the entire sect ablaze, plunging the entire sect into chaos and panic. This was far too reckless. Even if he wanted to save someone, he should not have done this. This way, even if that person managed to save his little junior sister, the sect would not let the matter rest. Furthermore, now that his master had sent out the distress signal, the sect master and the others would probably be rushing over. If that person could not escape after saving his little junior sister, then, at the same time, on 3 Yang Peak, a cold light flashed in Fengjiu's eyes as she read the message. She began to ponder. The other members of the sect would definitely rush over after seeing the distress signal. Before that, the first to enter would definitely be the 2 nascent soul cultivators who were guarding the mountain's entrance. If those 2 arrived, it would be impossible for her to kill 3 Yangzi and take her mother away. Hence, she immediately shouted, "Tun Yun, take my mother away first." "Yes. Be careful, master." Tun Yun replied and leaped towards Shangguan Wanrong's side. He wanted to carry her on his back and take her away from the back of the mountain. Only then would his master be at ease and face the battle without any worries. However, at this moment, the unconscious Shangguan Wanrong slowly regained consciousness after taking one of Fengjiu's pills. She could faintly hear Fengjiu's words. "No, if we're leaving, we'll leave together." She struggled to stand up but her legs gave way and she fell back down. Fortunately, Tun Yun lowered his body and caught her. "Mother, you leave first. I won't have any worries after you leave." Fengjiu turned around and spoke. His voice was unyielding, "I'll only have a chance to leave this place alive if you leave. Hurry. Leave with Tun Yun." But she didn't feel at ease leaving her daughter here to face such a dangerous battle. "Don't worry. Master will be fine. I'll send you away first. Maybe I can come back to help Master." As Tun Yun spoke, he placed her on his back and said, "Hold on to the fur on my back. That way, you won't fall." Hearing the conversation between her daughter and the cloud-devouring divine beast, Shangguan Wanrong also knew that she couldn't help at the moment. She might even be a burden to her daughter. Therefore, she could only lie on the back of the cloud-devouring divine beast, grab its fur, and say to Fengjiu, "You must live. Mother will wait for you to come home." "I will." Fengjiu indicated to Tun Yun. Tun Yun carried Shangguan Wanrong away from the back of the mountain. Seeing Shangguan Wanrong being carried away by that mythological beast, 3 Yangzi's expression changed, and he chased after her. "You, don't run. Wanrong. Get back here. Come back." That was the key to his survival. That was a human furnace that he had spent a long time looking for. How could he run away just like that? Without her, how was he going to refine the pill to prolong his life? How could he live without her? "Don't run. Get back to me." Whoosh! A piercingly cold sword energy instantly slashed out and landed in front of 3 Yangzi. The vibration of the air and the sharpness of the sword energy gave him a fright and he fell to the ground. Peak Master. Chapter 1505. Hearing the sound, 3 Yangzi turned around to look. When he saw that it was the 2 of them, he was overjoyed. He immediately pointed at Fengjiu and shouted, "Kill him! Kill him for me!" As soon as his voice fell, he planned to chase after Shangguan Wanrong, who had been taken away by that mythological beast. She was the catalyst for his survival. How could he look on helplessly as she escaped from his eyes like this? If he really let her escape, it would not be so easy to catch her in the future. You should worry about yourself first. At the same time, Fengjiu dashed forward and grabbed his throat like a ghost. A strange red medicinal pill was stuffed into 3 Yangzi's mouth. She whispered into his ear, "You dared to attack my mother. Killing you with a single stroke would be letting you off too easily. Before you die, I'll let you taste the pain of 10,000 insects drilling into your heart. You'll wish you were dead. Let go." 3 Yangzi struggled, but the medicinal core melted the moment it entered his throat, and the medicine spread out in his body. He could even feel an itchy and numb feeling rising in his body at the moment the medicinal core melted. But very quickly, this itchy and numb feeling was replaced by a sharp pain in his spine. It was as if thousands of insects were gnawing at his internal organs. The pain was so painful that he fell to the ground with a bang and rolled around. "Ah! Damn it! What did you feed me? What did you feed me? Give me the antidote, give me the antidote." He clutched his clothes tightly with both hands. His face turned from pale to red. His body kept rolling around as he screamed. The 2 nascent soul cultivators who had rushed over could not help but feel shocked when they saw him. Especially when they saw him take out his own medicinal pill and swallow it. However, it did not alleviate his symptoms. Instead, it sped up his symptoms. It was even more inconceivable. Even though the sky was dark, under the illumination of the light from the peak, they could still see something squirming under his skin. It was very frightening. The 2 nascent soul cultivators' expressions changed slightly. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. They quickly stepped forward to help the peak master who was rolling on the ground. Unexpectedly, he grabbed one of their hands and opened his mouth to bite that person. "Ah!" The nascent soul cultivator who was bitten cried out in pain. He instinctively raised his hand and sent the cultivator flying. However, the moment he made his move, he was stunned. He looked at the hand he used to slap the 3 young peak master away and then looked at his bleeding arm. He panicked and said to the other person, "I didn't mean it. It was just an instinctive reaction." That person didn't expect the peak master to open his mouth and bite him, nor did he expect his companion to knock the peak master out with a single strike. Thus, he calmed down and said, "Let's ignore everything else for now. Listen to the peak master's orders and kill this person first." He immediately gathered his chi and charged forward. With a twist of the sword in his hand, the blade filled with killing intent flew towards Fengjiu. The 2 of them attacked from the front and the left. Every move they made was swift and fierce. Every step they took was filled with killing intent. They attacked with the intention of killing Fengjiu. However, after the 2 of them fought with Fengjiu, they discovered that this young man's strength was really strong. He had already reached the nascent soul realm at such a young age, and he was not at a disadvantage when fighting with the 2 of them. Chapter 1506. His gaze landed on the youth. "Isn't this the errand boy who delivered the elixirs? Why is he here to save Junior Sister? What's his relationship with Junior Sister?" I really couldn't tell that this errand boy was actually a hidden expert. He was able to fight against 2 nascent soul cultivators alone and not lose. He's really capable. And my master? What exactly did that youth feed my master? Why is he in so much pain? Just as he was thinking, a shrill scream was heard and pulled him back from his thoughts. "Ah!" He looked over and saw his master's body twitching and lying stiffly on the ground. His eyes were wide open and his mouth was wide open. That mournful scream seemed to be the last sound he made, because after that scream, he seemed to have stopped breathing. "Master!" He was shocked and immediately ran out. When he reached his master's side, he was so shocked that his face turned pale and he took a few steps back. Master!" His body was stiff on the ground, but countless bugs crawled out from his 7 orifices. He could even see signs of the bugs wriggling under his skin. His eyes were wide open and he couldn't close them, as if he died with a grievance. His face was also filled with fear. His hands were twisted and dug deep into the ground. There was no life in his body. "Master! Master!" he shouted with a mournful expression and knelt down. He looked at his dead master in front of him and couldn't describe what he was feeling. Why bother? Why bother? Why did 3 Young Peak have to be turned into this? If he didn't touch Junior Sister, he wouldn't have been killed. If he didn't capture Junior Sister, he wouldn't have died today. Master killing his disciple? How could such a scandal be spread? If such news were to spread, not only would his image be destroyed, he would be cursed after death, and the disciples of 3 Young Peak would be looked down upon by the other peaks. Hiss. An. A cold light flashed and a scream was heard. A nascent soul cultivator was defeated by Fengjiu and took his last breath. Even if you kill all of us here, you won't be able to escape from the sect. The other nascent soul cultivator's eyes were filled with blood-red killing intent when he saw his brother being killed. Fengjiu held the green sword in his hand. Green sword energy surged on the blade, and the sharp tip of the sword pointed diagonally to the ground. Hearing the nascent soul cultivator's words, she curled her lips. She had no intention of escaping at all. This was because she could not escape. She had to stay here to buy time for her mother and Tun Yun to escape. As long as she was here, those people would not chase after them. Moreover, 3 Yangzi, who knew that her mother had been taken away by Tun Yun from the back of the mountain, was already dead. What she needed to do now was to stall until they were safely out of the Dan Yang sect's territory. At this moment, she didn't even think about whether she would be able to leave safely once the other members of the sect arrived. All she wanted to do was to make sure that her mother could leave this place safe and sound. Moreover, as long as she left, they wouldn't suspect her of 3 Yangzi's death. Even if she wasn't the one who killed 3 Yangzi, if she was here, they would definitely accuse her of murdering her master. Chapter 1507. Wan Changchun's actions were very puzzling. She had already noticed him earlier, but he had only been watching in the dark without any intention of making a move. Was he planning to let her mother go? Thinking about her observation of them and their actions during the day, it was not impossible. Before this, she had thought of many methods. The most direct method was to hide her mother in the space. However, her mother's injuries were beyond her expectations. Moreover, she was not sure if she could leave the Danyang sect safely. Naturally, she could not put her mother's safety together with hers. Calculating the time, if Leng Shuang and the others had already arrived outside to receive them, they should have met her mother. Then, she would not have to worry about her mother's safety. As for the others in the Danyang sect, if possible, she did not want to deal with them. After all, the only person she wanted to kill was 3 Yangzi. However, she did not want to be enemies with them. If they did not let her go, then she would have to make a move. Who are you? How dare you be so presumptuous in the Danyang sect? When a deep voice that contained spiritual energy was heard, Fengjiu looked up and saw a few figures flying in the air on swords. Seeing this, she glanced at Wan Changchun and then flew in the opposite direction of the back mountain. The figures of the cultivators following behind the sect leader flashed and chased after her. Wan Changchun noticed the gaze of the young man before he left. He stood up and looked at the sect leader, the elders, and the powerhouses following behind them. His heart could not help but sink. In addition to the powerhouses chasing after the young man, the sect leader and the rest were also protected by a few people. If this was the case, the young man would not be able to escape. Sect leader. That young man named Fengjiu killed the peak master of 3 Yangzi. When the injured nascent soul cultivator saw them, he immediately reported, "I recognize him. He was originally a disciple of 3 Yangzi as a servant. I did not expect him to be such a hidden person. He actually killed the peak master of 3 Yangzi." Hearing this, the expressions of the dozen people who came changed. They looked around and saw 3 Yangzi's stiff body lying on the ground. For a moment, they were extremely shocked. How, how is this possible? He is a fairy realm cultivator. An elder said in disbelief. He went forward to check and saw that 3 Yangzi had really stopped breathing. Only then did he believe that he was dead. When the rest of the people saw this scene, they were shocked. At the same time, they were more concerned about the person who killed 3 Yangzi. Therefore, the sect leader stared at the nascent soul cultivator and asked, "You said that the person who killed 3 Yangzi was a servant of 3 Yangzi? How could an odd job worker kill him? What's more, that person was clearly at the nascent soul stage. How could he be a servant?" Seeing the sect leader, he was sent to deliver the sect. To the sects of 3 Yangzi. He was to the Changzi's servant, and he was to the of him. Of 1. He, is what he said true? The sect master's gaze turned and landed on Wan Changchun. Chapter 1508. How could no one know that such a dangerous person had infiltrated the sect? What is the 3 Yang Peak doing? Even 3 Yang Zi was killed by that young man. The sect leader shouted angrily. He frowned and asked suspiciously, however, why would this person kill 3 Yang Zi? Does he have any feud with him? Since he had infiltrated the sect, why did he attack tonight? Why did he cause the entire sect to be on fire? This. I don't know either. Wan Changchun lowered his gaze and shook his head. I heard that 3 Yang Zi was planning to go into seclusion to refine pills. Furthermore, the pills he was going to refine were extraordinary. Could it be related to this? An elder stroked his beard as he spoke. He looked in the direction of the young man who had escaped and the cultivators who had chased after him. No matter what, he set fire to the Danyang sect and killed 3 Yang Zi. This is a fact. Let's capture him first. The sect leader said. He instructed Wan Changchun to settle 3 Yang Zi's corpse before he turned around and left. He planned to gather everyone in the sect to capture Fengjiu alive. Wan Changchun acknowledged the sect leader and watched them leave. He then asked the nascent soul cultivator to guard the corpse while he entered the cave to investigate. As soon as he stepped inside, the strong smell of blood assaulted his nostrils. He walked further in and arrived at the alchemy room. The black iron chains that had been cut off were stained with blood. It was a ghastly sight, seeing the scene in the cave, and thinking of his junior sister's injured and dying appearance, he could understand why that young man was so determined to kill his master. On the other side, Fengjiu fled towards the main gate of the sect. 2 nascent soul cultivators and 2 fairy realm cultivators chased after her relentlessly. As they chased after her, her body was injured by their sword qi. Many wounds appeared on her body. It was one thing to deal with 3 Yang Zi, who was a fairy realm cultivator. After all, he did not specialize in combat. However, it was not so easy to deal with the strong cultivators who followed behind the sect leader. If not for her strange movement technique and the Qing Feng sword in her hand, perhaps she would have already fallen into the hands of these people. When she was less than 300 meters away from the entrance of the sect, she was surrounded in mid-air by the 4 people. It really is the Azure Edge sword. Who are you? A fairy realm expert stared at the green sword in Fengjiu's hand, and his eyes were filled with shock. The ancient divine sword, Qing Feng, had been missing for many years. Now that it had reappeared, it was actually in the hands of a youth. Who was this young man? At this moment, the other 3 were equally excited. It was the Qing Feng sword. They were actually fated to see the ancient divine sword Qing Feng. This was the ancient divine sword that had been fought over until it set off a bloody storm several decades ago. Some of the disciples who noticed the stalemate in the air started to discuss among themselves. On the 7th peak of the 3 Yang Peak, Luoheng and Chen Dao were extremely shocked. They stared at the green figure in the distance, who was surrounded by a few experts. Even though he was a little far away, under the illumination of the flames and the sect, under the refraction of the flames, that person's figure and face were clearly seen by them. That's Fengjiu. What is he doing? Luo Heng couldn't hide his shock and horror as he stared at Fengjiu in the distance and muttered to the people around him. Chapter 1509. With such medical skills, how could he possibly be an ordinary person? He had long known that he was not an ordinary person, but he did not expect him to do such a thing here. Why? If he wanted to kill the Peak Master, why did he hide for so long before making his move? What was his motive for doing so? Now that he was surrounded in the sect, how could he escape with his life? The sounds of battle from afar pulled him back from his thoughts. He looked at Fengjiu, who was surrounded, and realized that he could not save him at this moment, let alone help him. In front of so many people in the sect, if he stepped forward to protect him, he would only be killed by his accomplices. He would not be of any use at all. So, what should he do? How could he save him? What should we do? Could Fengjiu have been killed? How could he fight against so many of them alone? Moreover, 2 of them are fairies. How could he deal with them? Luo Heng said worriedly. Compared to his grandmaster's death, he was more concerned about Fengjiu's life and death. When Qindao heard this, he pursed his lips and turned to leave, intending to ask what was going on. However, just as he was about to head to the 9th peak, he saw the sect leader and the others standing in the air on their swords, watching the battle from a distance. When he saw this, he summoned his chi and flew up on his sword. However, before he could get close, he was stopped by the cultivators who were protecting them behind them. "Who's there?" A nascent soul cultivator shouted. One of the elders inadvertently glanced over. When he saw that it was Qindao, he was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. He walked up to Qindao with a face full of disbelief. He circled around Qindao and looked at him again and again. Qindao, how did you recover? Are you all right?" When Qindao saw him, he quickly grabbed him and asked, "Second Grandpa, what's going on? How could Fengjiu kill the Peak Master? Could there be a mistake?" The elder looked at Qindao and saw that he was really fine. He was shocked and happy at the same time. It was good that he was fine. The Qin family disciples should be like that. They weren't easy to defeat. When we arrived, 3 Yangzi had already been killed. That nascent soul cultivator said that it was this odd job disciple named Fengjiu who killed him. Oh right, I thought that this name was somewhat familiar with this young man. Now that I've met you, I remember. Isn't he that odd job disciple who likes to hang around you? Back then, it was this labor disciple's words that stopped him from sending Qindao back. However, based on the current situation, he had to make Qindao cut off all ties with that labor disciple. Otherwise, who knew if his Qin clan would be implicated because of this? It's him, Second Grandpa. He was the one who healed my injuries. Second Grandpa, could there be a misunderstanding? Although Fengjiu is a little mischievous, he does things with all his heart. Furthermore, he healed my injuries. It can be seen that he's not a malicious person. If he really killed 3 Yangzi Peak Master, then there must be something we don't know about. Qindao continued, "Second Grandpa, I hope you can talk to the sect leader about this. Perhaps there really is a misunderstanding. According to my understanding of him, he's not a malicious person." Chapter 1510. But before Qindao could finish his sentence, he heard a cry of pain from not too far away. That familiar voice drew his attention. Far away, Fengjiu, who was dressed in green, had been stabbed in the shoulder by a nascent soul cultivator who had launched a sneak attack from behind. The long sword had pierced through his back, and the sharp sword, dripping with blood, had pierced his shoulder. Qindao's heart clenched when he saw this. "Fengjiu! He cried out in alarm and wanted to rush forward, but he was held back by the elder beside him. The elder shouted, "What are you doing? Do you want to die?" Feng Jiu. He clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, he hated himself for not being able to help him. He could only watch as he was pierced by the sword. When he turned around to fight off the nascent soul cultivator, he was sent flying by a fairy realm cultivator in front of him. Feng Jiu. Luo Heng's face turned pale. He watched as Feng Jiu's figure fell from midair. His entire body seemed to have been drained of energy in that instant, and he allowed his body to fall powerlessly from midair. Capture him alive. The sect master's dignified voice rang out at this moment. Once the order was given, the few cultivators immediately responded and swooped down at the same time, wanting to capture the heavily injured Luo Heng alive. However, a shocking change occurred at this moment. The falling youth closed his eyes and allowed his body to fall from the sky. The long sword that had pierced through his shoulder had yet to be pulled out. He held the Qing Feng sword in one hand and allowed his body to fall as if he had stopped breathing. When the two nascent soul cultivators and the two fairy realm cultivators swooped down and were about to catch her, she suddenly opened her eyes. Her entire body instantly surged with a terrifying spiritual aura. Whoosh! A sharp aura whizzed out from her body. Other than the aura and pressure of a nascent soul cultivator, the powerful spiritual aura also contained the aura of an ancient divine beast. The Qing Feng sword in her hand shot out a dazzling green light, and the sharpness of the sword's blade was even more frightening. Bang! The powerful airflow surged and collided with her body. The long sword that was stabbed into her shoulder was forced out by her aura at this moment. With a whoosh, it flew out and fell to the ground. The green clothes on her body were also torn apart by the surging airflow at this moment. After an explosive bang, the green clothes were torn apart and scattered in the night sky, revealing a white undergarment she was wearing underneath. Whoosh! The surging airflow didn't seem to stop, blowing away her hair that was tied up messily. Her ink-black hair fluttered in the night, accompanied by the white silk on her body. She looked like a ghost in the night, captivating one's heart and soul. Feng 9 is a woman. This servant is a woman. How is this a young man? This servant is a woman. She only wore an inner garment that revealed her graceful and exquisite figure. Especially her black hair that hung loosely on her shoulders, it fully revealed the natural beauty of a woman. However, right when everyone was shocked and astonished, they saw her standing in midair with a sword in her hand. Her clear eyes coldly swept those cultivators with her gaze, and with a movement of her finger, she withdrew a set of red clothes from space and put it on. Chapter 1511. Whoosh! The powerful airflow was still surging around her body. At the same time, under the shocked gazes of the entire sect, the sound of thunder rumbled from the sky. An oppressive and gloomy aura pressed down from the sky and enveloped the entire sect. Boom! Hiss! What's going on? What's going on? Why is there thunder on a sunny day? What's with the aura on Feng Jiu's body? The airflow around her body is so strong. It seems like she's about to break through. She seems to have eaten something earlier. I saw her raise her hand and eat something. Then, her aura changed like that. Break through? Impossible. She's only a mid-nascent soul cultivator. She can't possibly break through at this stage. Her aura has increased tremendously and she's drawing upon the power of heaven and earth. She must have eaten some kind of pill to increase her strength. Pill? How is that possible? What kind of pill can produce such a powerful airflow and aura? What kind of pill can cause such a shocking change in a person's strength and aura? She killed San Yangzi. Could it be that San Yangzi refined some kind of heaven-defying pill and she stole it? Chen Dao only felt his ears rumble as he listened to the shocked cries and discussions around him. His mind went blank as he stared dumbfoundedly at the evil figure in red robes floating in the air. That person is Fengjiu. Fengjiu is a woman. How can he be a woman? He's clearly a young man. How did he turn from him to her in the blink of an eye? On the mountain peak below, Luo Heng was also dumbfounded. The young man who called him brother had turned into a woman in the blink of an eye. Just as he stared blankly at the red figure, he saw the red figure flash through the night like a ghost. The sharp sword in her hand was glowing with a green light as she attacked the nascent soul cultivator who had just stabbed her. Her speed increased by several times in an instant. The green sword slashed through the air and the nascent soul cultivator was unable to dodge in time. Fresh blood flowed from his neck. His eyes were wide open, filled with unwillingness and disbelief. Seeing the nascent soul cultivator lose his balance and fall to the ground, the blood caused the hearts of the other three to tremble and a sense of horror rose in their hearts. Too fast. That kind of speed was too fast. So fast that they couldn't see it clearly. Her speed had increased by so much. However, just as they were in a state of shock, a cold aura suddenly rushed towards them. By the time the other nascent soul cultivator regained his senses, a long sword glowing with azure light had already pierced through his chest, destroying his nascent soul and cutting off his life. Ah! You! He unwillingly held on to the green sword that had pierced his chest. Blood dripped from his hands as he held on to the blade, but he still refused to let go. His eyes were fixed on Fengjiu, as if he wanted to drag her down with him. When the two fairy realm powerhouses recovered from their shock, they saw the nascent soul realm cultivator desperately holding onto the long sword to restrain the red-robed woman. They immediately shouted and waved their palms to attack her. Die! At this moment, they felt that they should kill her first. This person was too dangerous. Chapter 15:12. Borrowing the force of the azure-edged sword, the nascent soul cultivator was flung away by the air current and fell into the flames of the mountain below. Not long after, he was engulfed by the flames. Fengjiu glanced at him and turned to face the two fairy realm cultivators. The Danyang sect was good at refining elixirs, but they were not good at fighting. However, they never lacked the protection of strong cultivators. No matter how strong a cultivator was, he had his own needs. Elixirs were good for increasing a cultivator's strength. Clang! When the swords and sabers collided, sparks flew. The two fairy realm cultivators attacked Fengjiu from the front and back. At this time, Fengjiu had consumed an elixir to increase his strength. It was as if there was a ball of fire surging in his body. Strong spiritual energy flowed out continuously, forming a strong fighting force. At this time, the two fairy realm cultivators were still unable to gain the upper hand. They could not help but be shocked. With such fighting force, who was this woman? A woman who was not even in her 20s had such a fighting force. They had never seen anyone like her before. Could this woman be a disciple of a hidden family or an aristocratic family? Thinking of this, the two of them hesitated. They were at a disadvantage in the fight, and their bodies were injured by the sword aura. Moreover, the aura that emanated from this woman clearly had the aura of an ancient divine beast. The more they fought, the more frightened they became. They did not dare to be careless. Finally, when the two of them were attacked by the sword aura and were forced to retreat, they looked at each other and retreated at the same time. They did not want to be enemies with this woman. Since they could not kill her, they had to retreat. Otherwise, they would only create a difficult opponent for themselves. If they were not careful, they might even die at her hands like the two nascent soul realm cultivators. However, if they retreated now, they would not be able to stay in the Danyang sect any longer. When the sect leader saw the two fairy realm cultivators retreating cautiously, he could not help but frown. He said to the people behind him, "Go and help. You must capture that woman. If you can't capture her alive, then kill her." Those who offend the Danyang sect will not be easily forgiven. The few of them hesitated when they heard this. They had been watching for a long time, and they could tell that this woman's battle prowess was extraordinary. They were afraid that they might not be able to defeat her. Perhaps sensing their hesitation, the sect leader made a promise at this moment, regardless of life or death, as long as you capture him, I will give each of you a top-grade pill. Hearing this, everyone's eyes lit up. In that moment of hesitation, they were enticed by the enormous benefits. Top-grade medicinal pills. Furthermore, it was a pill that the sect master had personally promised. That was definitely not something that could be obtained from the outside. Even though they knew that there might be casualties if they made a move, they were still tempted by the huge temptation of benefits. At that moment, a few of them could not hide their excitement and responded. Yes. As soon as he finished speaking, several people dashed out toward Fengjiu. When the two people who had retreated heard the sect master's words, their hearts trembled slightly. However, they did not continue to move forward. Instead, they continued to retreat. They had fought with that woman before. Her strength was at the nascent soul realm, but after eating the medicinal pill, her strength increased several times. Moreover, she was a combat-type cultivator who grew stronger the stronger she met. They really didn't have the confidence to fight with her. Chapter 15-13. Fengjiu glanced at the two who had put away their swords and retreated. Since they weren't her enemies, she naturally wouldn't touch them. Hence, she only glanced at them briefly before shifting her gaze towards the group of people who were heading towards her. 6 people. 3 of them were at the peak of the nascent soul stage and 3 of them were at the beginner level of the fairy realm. This kind of combat power was absolutely shocking. She didn't know if she could withstand it. Her eyes moved slightly and a dark light flashed in the depths of her eyes. It seemed that she had to do something. Her clear eyes swept across Qindao's worried face in the distance and she curled her lips into a smile. Suddenly, she raised her Qingfeng sword and spun around. Her entire body flew more than 10 meters into the air before she stopped. Her clear and cold voice rang out at this moment. I have no intention of becoming enemies with the Danyang sect. I killed 3 Yangtze for a reason. If you let me go now, no one from the Danyang sect will die. Otherwise, the sword has no eyes and you will be responsible for your own deaths. The clear and cold voice carried a powerful aura of spiritual energy as it rang out from the night sky. Like ripples of water, it rippled outwards and spread into the ears of every disciple in the sect. The powerful aura and Fengjiu's warning caused their hearts to skip a beat and they couldn't help but feel nervous. Just as the disciples of the sect were becoming anxious and restless because of her words, the sect leader's deep and angry voice rang out and echoed in the sky. You infiltrated my sect, killed 3 Yangtze, and set fire all over the Danyang sect. If I don't kill you, won't the world think that the Danyang sect is a place to be offended? Today, even if you have 3 heads and 6 arms, you won't be able to break out of our sect's territory. The sect leader, who was standing in mid-air with his hands behind his back, shouted in a deep voice. His voice contained a powerful aura that spread throughout the entire sect. Just as he finished speaking, he shouted again in a deep voice. Open the sect's great array. Trap this arrogant woman. Don't let her escape. When the people guarding the array heard the sect master's words, they immediately worked together to activate the sect protection array. After a loud rumble, a visible aura of spiritual power rose from the ground around the sect like a halo and surrounded the sect. The power of the halo was powerful and intimidating, and a terrifying pressure spread out in an instant, causing the disciples of the entire sect to cry out in surprise. They even forgot to extinguish the flames that had not been extinguished, and just stared blankly. Oh my God! The Great Sect Protection Array. This formation would only be activated when there was a great enemy. Many years had passed, and this sect protecting formation had never been activated. Who would have thought that it would be used to deal with a little girl today? Fine. Although this woman's strength was frighteningly powerful, she was still a woman after all. Yet, she had to use the sect protection formation. If news of this were to spread, the outside world would probably explode. However, no one knew that when the Great Sect Protection Formation was activated, Tun Yun, who had left the rear mountain with Shangguan Wanrong, leaped up and sensed a powerful aura spreading behind him. When he turned his head to take a look, worry involuntarily surfaced in his eyes. "Master, you must wait for me. Wait for me to come back." Just as Tun Yun gritted his teeth and was about to quickly send Shangguan Wanrong to Ling Shuang and the others, who were waiting for her outside, a deep and magnetic voice suddenly sounded from the front. Chapter 15-14. Hearing this familiar voice, Tun Yun's heart trembled. It abruptly raised its head and saw Xianyuan Mose, who was dressed in black robes and emitting a powerful aura, rushing towards it. Even though Xianyuan Mose was currently wearing a mask and his face couldn't be seen clearly, it still made Tun Yun extremely excited. It let out a low roar and quickly leapt forward. Shangguan Wanrong, who was lying on Tun Yun's back in a semi-conscious state, was sweating from her forehead due to her injuries and Tun Yun's movements. Although she was not completely unconscious, she was not far from it. When she heard a man's voice, she tried to raise her head, but all she saw was the corner of a black robe and a masked face. "Master is still inside. She wants me to bring her mother out first." "Yama Lord, those people are bullying Master with their numbers. They seem to have activated the sect's protective formation to prevent Master from escaping. Yama Lord, hurry and save Master. I'm worried that she won't be able to hold on," Tun Yun hurriedly said. Tun Yun said anxiously. He had not expected to meet him here. He only knew that Ling Shuang and the others were waiting for them outside. This was a message that had been sent out long ago. He knew that Ling Shuang and the others would be waiting for them outside. However, the Yama Lord's arrival had exceeded his expectations. Perhaps even Master had not expected this. When Xianyuan Mose heard this, his entire body's aura instantly sank. A chilling aura emanated from his body, enveloping the entire forest in a gloomy atmosphere. He stepped forward and glanced at the injured Shangguan Wanrong on Tun Yun's back. A malicious glint flashed through his eyes when he saw her injuries. If even she was injured like this, then wouldn't Fengjiu be? Ling Shuang and the others are in front. Go on over. Send her back first. Leave your master to me. Xianyuan Mose spoke in a deep and magnetic voice. After giving his instructions, he rushed inside and quickly rushed towards the Pilyang sect where Fengjiu was. Tun Yun relaxed slightly when he saw that the Yama Lord had gone to help. Just as he was about to rush forward, he suddenly heard a rooster crow. Cluck cluck cluck. Ha ha ha. It turned its head to look and saw a green-feathered chicken not far away digging the soil with its claws. It then nestled its body in the hole that it dug and tried to dig. The corner of its mouth twitched when it saw this. After shooting a glance at the green-feathered chicken, he leaped forward and rushed forward. At this time, in the sect, Fengjiu was fighting against several people alone. Even though she had taken the elixir to increase her strength, she was still powerless in the face of such strong opponents. Moreover, these people wanted to kill her. Every move was swift and fierce, and every step was filled with killing intent. The slightest carelessness would put her in danger. Originally, she still had some leeway. She thought that since she had no enmity with these people, there was no need to kill them. However, looking at the current situation, if she wanted to live, she had to kill them all. You forced me to do this. After dodging an attack, she quickly retreated. Her red robe and black hair fluttered in the wind. She held the emerald sword in her hand, and her spiritual aura surged. She urged the flames in her body to pour into the emerald sword in her hand. With a whoosh, flames suddenly sprang up. The emerald sword, which was originally suffused with a green glow, was now like an angry dragon. The powerful sword aura and the flames resonated with each other, and the whole sword became more than twice its original size under the contrast of the flames. Whirlwind attack. Chapter 15:15. Sword chi shot out along with the flames, forming a crescent arc as it slashed through the bodies of the surrounding cultivators at a speed that was too fast for the ears to cover. Whoosh! Hiss! The sharp sword energy struck out, slicing through the chests of the cultivators who could not dodge in time. As blood seeped out, their robes were also stained with flames. In an instant, they cried out in alarm as they tried to extinguish the flames on their bodies. Hiss! It's so hot! Hiss! It's on fire! It's on fire! Ah! How could my body? One of the cultivators cried out in alarm. His body, which was still in mid-air, suddenly fell down. He was so shocked that he screamed, "Quick, save me! The spiritual aura in my body has disappeared." The sect master and the others were watching from a distance. When they saw that their bodies were on fire, they panicked. Then, they saw a nascent soul cultivator lose his balance and fall down. Cultivators below, quickly catch him! The sect master shouted in a low voice. His brows were tightly knitted together as he looked at the red-robed woman who was standing in midair. His low voice was filled with pressure and anger. You used medicine. This woman actually dared to use medicine in front of so many people. She really treated them as if they were nothing. What's wrong with using medicine? Using medicine is better than bullying others with numbers. Fengjiu snorted coldly and twirled the long sword in her hand. She glanced at the great protective array and said, "You want to trap me like this? You're too naive. I've already said that I didn't want to be your enemy. However, since you won't let me leave, then don't blame me for the deaths of the sect." As she spoke, she waved her hand and a handful of medicinal foam seemed to be blown away by the night wind, scattering it all over the ground. The corners of her lips curled into a demonic smile as her voice floated out, "If you don't want to die, you'd better hide quickly. Otherwise, if you die, the sect master won't feel any heartache." When the people below heard this, they saw that the few nascent soul realm cultivators in mid-air had fallen from the sky, while the few fairy realm cultivators were still barely able to support themselves and retreat. When the disciples below saw this, they quickly retreated. There were also a few clever people who took antidote pills and tried to show off their skills. Unfortunately, it was all useless. How could the medicine that she had concocted be detoxified by ordinary people? Some of the weaker cultivators instantly lost all of their spirit force and were unable to summon any spirit force at all. Those with stronger cultivations were better off. The outbreak was slower and they could still suppress it. However, it was also because of this that they were slightly fearful. This woman was so difficult to deal with. Was she really going to give up her life for a medicinal pill? The sect master's face darkened when he saw the hesitation on the faces of the few fairy realm experts. He stared at Fengjiu, and in the next moment, he waved his hand and summoned his contract beast. Black Eagle. Come out. Screech. A long and clear whistle instantly pierced through the sky and reverberated in the night sky. Just as the sect leader's order fell, a black eagle that was sleeping on a mountain peak flapped its wings and soared into the sky and into the night sky. The huge black eagle circled in the air and screeched. Its voice contained the pressure of a sacred beast and sacred beast. Along with the voice, the sacred beast's pressure made all the disciples of the sect boil. Chapter 15:16. Sect Leader. Seeing this scene, Chen Dao was shocked. He wanted to kill Fengjiu. A sacred beast, Fengjiu, how could she possibly stop him? Don't cause trouble. If you continue to cause trouble, don't blame me for knocking you out. The elder held on to Chen Dao's hand and shouted, not allowing him to go forward and cause trouble. His gaze landed on the red figure and a complicated look flashed across his eyes. He really did not expect that strange young man to be a woman. Furthermore, she was no longer restraining her aura, no longer concealing her aura. She was actually so elegant and noble. This person, no matter how he looked at it, did not look like he was made to be a servant. Did he sneak in because of 3 Yangtze? Could it be that he had some enmity with 3 Yangtze? Black Eagle. Kill him. The sect leader ordered in a deep voice. He stretched out his hand and pointed towards Fengjiu, whose red robes were fluttering in the air. An eagle's cry rang out and the huge black eagle, which was flapping its wings and circling in the air, closed its wings and swooped down from the sky. Its sharp, hooked beak carried a powerful aura and murderous intent as it attacked Fengjiu, as if it was about to tear him apart. Seeing the black eagle swooping down, its powerful aura accompanied by its extremely fast speed brought about a frightening airflow. Seeing the bloodthirsty and cruel look in the eagle's eyes, Fengjiu squinted her eyes and raised her sword to meet it. Since they wanted to fight, then let's fight. She wanted to see how many of them could die under her green-edged sword. Mixed element slash. With a cold shout, the pressure of the ancient mythological beast and the sword chi of the green-tipped sword merged together. With a whistling sound, a terrifying sword chi burst forth. This sword chi that could be seen with the naked eye formed a huge sword blade. When she swooped down to meet the sacred beast, it also slashed down. Whoosh! Bang! Whoosh 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 whoosh! The huge sacred beast Black Eagle and Fengjiu fought in the air. Everyone could only see that in the pitch-black night, the red figure flashed past the Black Eagle like lightning. In the battle, the Black Eagle's feathers seemed to be cut off by the airflow and fell from the sky like petals of a flower. What was shocking was that Fengjiu could actually hold on against a sacred beast. She has the aura of an ancient sacred beast. She must have made a contract with an ancient sacred beast. An elder said as he stared at Fengjiu, if we can kill her and take her ancient sacred beast as our mountain guardian beast, then our Danyang sect will become even stronger. Chen Dao's heart turned cold when he heard this, and he was unable to speak for a long time. A mere sacred beast dares to be impudent in front of me. Get down. A cold voice rang out from Fengjiu's mouth. She stepped on the Black Eagle's head and soared into the sky. She held her sword and rushed up, releasing the ancient sacred beast's aura. In an instant, there was a whoosh sound and a flame appeared around her. This flame formed the original form of the fire phoenix behind her. Like a flame, it soared into the sky and let out a phoenix cry. Almost at that instant, the Black Eagle's body trembled, and its entire body plummeted more than 10 meters. At that moment, Fengjiu raised the Qingfeng sword in her hand, aimed at the huge Black Eagle, and viciously slashed down. Die. No. Chapter 15-17. Screech. The shrill cry of an eagle pierced through the sky. The sharp sound was so loud that it hurt everyone's eardrums, as if it was going to pierce through their eardrums. Everyone could not help but cover their ears. Only the sect leader's eyes were bloodshot. His body trembled as he looked at the scene in disbelief. He felt as if his arm had been cut off. That was his contracted beast. A sacred beast. Just like that, it was killed right in front of him. Fengjiu. I won't forgive you. His hands were tightly clenched into fists. His eyes were bloodshot and his murderous intent was terrifying. Seeing his contracted beast fall from the sky to the ground, he felt the contract between him and his contracted beast being cut off. The feeling of being connected by blood and heart was as if someone was ruthlessly pulling at his heart. It was so painful that he could not breathe. Everyone else's mouths were wide open as they looked at the figure in red in disbelief. The visual impact was shocking to their hearts and minds, causing them to be in extreme shock and disbelief. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, how could they believe that this scene was real? A woman who had always been looked down upon by men like them, had actually single-handedly dealt with the strong cultivators of the Danyang sect. She had even killed several of them. In the end, she had even killed the sect leader's sacred beast eagle. This was just too unbelievable. Fengjiu did not want to waste time at this moment. After she had resolved the crisis around her, she tried to break the array and leave. However, she found that this great protective array seemed to be different from other arrays. When she got close, she could feel the protective spiritual energy flow. However, when she tried to pass through the array, she was blocked and bounced back. Fengjiu, I won't forgive you, I won't forgive you. Don't even think about leaving the Danyang sect. I will take your blood as a sacrifice to my black eagle. The sect leader's voice was filled with hatred and murderous intent. Fengjiu did not pay attention to him. She was thinking about how to break the great protective array. This was a great array formed by the array and boundary. If she could not break it here, she would have to find a way to activate the array. However, Chen Dao only saw the sect leader take out 2 jade tablets and crush them. He then sent a message, "Sect Guardian Elder, please help me kill this madwoman who has offended our sect." Sect Guardian Elder. Sect Guardian Elder. Voices reverberated in the night. Tonight, the entire sect was in chaos. Even after many years, the people of Danyang sect would never forget the shocking scene tonight. However, the strange thing was that when the sect master crushed the jade tablet to ask the sect protector elder to come out, there was no movement at all. In fact, there was not even a single word. This strange scene caused the few elders standing behind the sect master to look at each other in dismay, feeling somewhat stunned. It was as if something was wrong. However, at this moment, the great protective array that enveloped the entire sect suddenly closed with a boom. The great protective array that had formed a protective shield to prevent people from entering the sect dissipated at this moment. Chapter 15-18. When Fengjiu saw that the array had been closed, her heart trembled slightly. Just as she was about to leave, she saw a familiar figure walking towards her. When she saw the black figure, she was startled, somewhat surprised, and then relieved. It was Mose. He had come. She did not expect him to come here at this time. After all, she had only informed Ling Shuang and the others to provide support outside, but did not tell him what she was going to do. However, when she thought of the Yen Hall's forces scattered all over the place, she understood. As long as he wanted to know, even if she did not tell him, how could he not find out where she was? However, he had arrived at the perfect time. After all, he was the one who should have shut down the great sect protection formation. Seeing his arrival, her entire body relaxed. With him here, she believed that nothing would happen to her. However, compared to Fengjiu's relaxed body, Xianyuan Mose's deep black eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty coldness. He looked at the red figure floating in the air, looked at the wounds on her red clothes, looked at her black hair draped over her shoulders, looked at her entire body surging with spiritual aura and pressure that was several times higher than her cultivation level. He knew that she had been forced to take a pill that could raise her strength in a short period of time. She had that kind of pill, and the effects of this pill were extremely fast and powerful. It could raise the strength of the person who took it in a very short period of time. However, there was a time limit. Moreover, once the effects of the pill wore off, it would cause great damage to the body. In a few breaths, Xianyuan Mose arrived in front of Fengjiu and reached out to pull her into his arms. "How are you? Are you all right?" His deep voice could not conceal his cold aura. He looked pitifully at the exhausted Fengjiu in his arms and scolded, "Why didn't you tell me? Why did you need me to take care of everything yourself?" Hearing this, Fengjiu could not help but laugh. "Did I stay with you so that you can protect me? Don't worry. I won't die, just treat it as training. I haven't fought like this for a long time." Speaking of which, it's really quite tiring. She reached out to wrap her arms around his waist and pressed her face against his. Feeling the spiritual aura in her body gradually dissipating, she said, "The effects of the pill are about to wear off. The sect protection array is closed, let's go." However, Shen Yuanmo's hugged her tightly and shifted his deep gaze from her face to the sect master of the Danyang sect in the distance. "The people of the Danyang sect injured you to this extent. How could I let them off so easily? Since they dared to touch his woman, how could he let them off? Forget it, let's go. The people I wanted to kill have been killed by me, and the people I wanted to save have also been saved by me. There's no need to care about the people here." In the end, she did not want Shen Yuanmo's to destroy the Pil Yang sect. After all, she had lived here for a period of time and did not have much contact with the people here. However, there were still some people who took good care of her. She did not want to be too ruthless in everything. At this time, the sect leader of the Pil Yang sect felt the black-robed man's cold and bloodthirsty eyes staring at him. A chill ran up from the bottom of his feet, causing him to involuntarily shiver. He felt fear and panic from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 15-19. When he thought about how the entire sect had been thrown into chaos because of the red-robed woman called Fengjiu, how flames had broken out everywhere, and how countless people had died, and how even his contracted beast, the Black Eagle, who was supposed to be the sect's supreme divine beast, had been killed in front of everyone, his heart was filled with resentment and hatred. How could he let her off so easily? If he really let the two of them go today, wouldn't their reputation as the #1 alchemy sect in the 8 great empires be tarnished? Behind them, Chen Dao watched as the sect's great array closed and the mysterious black-robed man flew through the air, protecting Fengjiu in his arms. Finally, he heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed like he was someone Fengjiu knew, and their relationship was not shallow. With him around, the sect leader would not be able to hurt Fengjiu again. This was good too, as he could finally relax. After all, he was facing a person who had saved his life, who had given him a new lease of life. Now, he was surrounded and attacked by everyone, but he could not step forward to help. He felt guilty and remorseful. The few fairy realm powerhouses who had retreated stared at the black-robed man's mask, unable to hide the shock and fear in their eyes. They could not help but retreat further, lowering their heads slightly as if they were trying to hide themselves. Yes, they recognized the man's identity. Wasn't that unique mask the mask of the Yama Lord of the Yama Palace? The red-robed woman was actually related to the Yama Lord of the Yama Palace. Moreover, the elusive Yama Lord had actually come here personally. It was clear that this woman held an extraordinary position in his heart. At this moment, they could not help but secretly rejoice that they had stopped in time. Otherwise, not only would they have died here, but their families and those who were related to them would also have been implicated. Sect Guardian Elder. The thunderous voice rang out again. The sect leader was unwilling to let them leave just like that, so he called out to the main mountain again. However, there was no response, as if a stone had sunk into the sea. Sect Guardian Elder, pleased that he shouted again, unwilling to give up. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was sent flying by a palm strike. The powerful wind from the palm strike was infused into the palm strike, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. His entire body instantly fell from midair. Sect Master. Everyone cried out in alarm as they looked at the two people who had appeared a few meters in front of them. They couldn't help but take a few steps back as their eyes were filled with shock. It was too fast. That speed was too fast. In the blink of an eye, he arrived here and attacked the sect master. No one could block or dodge that kind of speed. Looking at the man's overwhelming killing intent, their hearts were instantly in their mouths. After taking such a blow, could the sovereign still survive? However, just as they watched the sect master fall, his figure was caught by a spiritual aura and pulled in front of the man and woman. When they saw that the masked man in black robes was able to use his spiritual aura to control people, everyone was shocked. Xianyuan Mose held Fengjiu in one hand and used his other hand to gather his spiritual aura and lift the sect master a few meters in front of him. He stared at the sect master as a murderous intent flashed across his deep black eyes. At this moment, a voice rang out from the sky and echoed in the night, "You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.